The base is dropped on another edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Monday. It's an overreaction Monday. Lots to react to. Atlanta United lost in Montreal 2-1. Lots of games around MLS to react to. Lots of games worldwide to react to as well. News and such. If you want to get into more of the worldwide stuff, we will have soccer over there tonight at 7:05, and we'll get deeper into things there, especially the title race in Serie A, where Milan gets a fortunate goalkeeper blunder to get their win that they needed. They're getting a few of these. Inter had one go against them. Milan's getting one. I don't know what Nicolifi is doing with the gods of the universe, but something is happening. Milan's in a good spot there. Real Madrid wins the title. Carlo Ancelotti probably still celebrating, although he does have a big game this week in the Champions League that they'll be preparing for. Lots of storylines worldwide. We'll talk about that tonight in more detail. But if you want to talk about it this morning, we can do that too. We'll bounce around. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about Atlanta, Montreal, to some people's chagrin. You know, we're not allowed to have opinions. Sorry. We'll try to do our best not to offend anyone this morning with sensitive sensibilities. So, Jarrett, you were not on the Salty Takeaways show. You had things going on this weekend. So you want to give your thoughts on Atlanta and Montreal first?
Yeah, I guess. A lot of it's just frustration in the sense that you can have a game where you do the thing where you don't want to do, where you give up an early goal, and then you give Montreal an opportunity to sit back and put bodies behind the ball. You end up fighting uphill, and eventually you're able to get something through Marcin Moreno doing Marcin Moreno things. It's well, there were a lot of opinions on Marcin Moreno.
Hey, Jarrett, before
Yeah,
we keep going, can you try reconnecting? Your awesome new headset is letting you down this morning.
of course it is.
Yeah, we'll try that again with Jarrett here in just a second. I thought it was going to solidify itself. It chose not to. So we'll get into that. Yes, frustrating. Give up a goal in the 4th minute on a set piece that was not defended well at all. Then you fight your way back into it and you have control of the game, but it's a different game because you're down 1-0 in the 4th minute and you get that equalizer. And let's see if Jarrett can speak clearly now.
Can he?
Yes, it sounds like it.
Okay. Yeah, but you have the mistake on a set piece early in the game. You put yourself in a hole. Like we went over this a couple of years ago with the go back to the rain game in Columbus that shouldn't have been played like 3 years ago. Like just don't put yourself in a hole on the road.
Yeah.
That happens, then you're fighting uphill. You're trying to break down a low block because Montreal's fine playing like that. Montreal has no problem doing that. And then you get the goal. Marcelino Moreno does. He basically beats two guys. Like go back and watch the way he rolls that ball to his right with his foot. It almost looks like he does it with his hand. The control is stupid on it. Places it perfectly. You're in decent shape, but then Montreal kind of like leans forward in the seat. It kind of feels like Atlanta takes a breath, and then Montreal starts pushing. It gets more even. Montreal gets opportunities. I mean, and a lot of their chances came off of set pieces.
8 of their
Which
15 shots came off of set piece situations, including not being cleared, recycling, and honestly, from what I could tell from the chalkboard situation, 6 of them came from 2 situations. So it's 2 set pieces that are getting 6 shots. It's not good, but it's also not dominance either. So it's one of those things that will absolutely drive you nuts.
It will drive you nuts, and it's got to drive the coaching staff nuts because we talked about before. Like you can install whether or not it's going to be a man marking or a zonal marking, however you're going to do it. People have succeeded with both, and the coaches can't do it. It's on the players on the field making individual mistakes with marking, and whether or not you're not marking your area correctly or not marking your man. I believe they're doing zonal.
They're doing zonal.
I'm not mistaken.
They're doing zonal. I don't want to mislead anybody. They're doing zonal, and it's not marking somebody in your zone. It's reacting when the ball's in your zone.
Yeah.
With the height of this team, with the way they are on set pieces, it's going to be very difficult to play man to man against a lot of teams. Not every team, but a lot of teams. Is there some kind of hybrid you could do? It came up in the Nashville game yesterday where what they like to do is leave Romney and Zimmerman free, so they're zonal and they will man mark other people. So you've got a body to deal with, but you've also got two of your best players in the air, not marking, they're free. It's an interesting idea. I think it suits Walker Zimmerman especially,
I was about to
who
say
likes to go up
it
and get
suits
it.
them. They're unique in that, in my opinion. Like they're
Yeah,
both of
no,
them are
there's
unique players.
right. There's different ways to do it. In this situation, the first goal is a situation where, I mean, Franco Ibarra tries to get into that area. He's behind the play. He's on the back post, and it gets over Alan Franco. And Franco, I don't know if he doesn't catch it, doesn't catch the flight of it. I'm not sure if he misjudged it, but it gets over his head. Kamal Miller goes up and wins it. Ibarra tries to make it difficult for him, but he's coming from the backside. Miller doesn't even have to really react to him. So it's maddening because that changes everything. The game's completely different in the fourth minute from what you walked in the door with. And I don't think Montreal sat back in a low block. I think they were played back into a low block because I think Atlanta played really well. I think the tactics that were in mind for Gonzalo Pineda here with a midfield that had Franco Ibarra and Mateus Josechu in there in place of Santiago Sosa and Amar Sejdic, I think it worked. I think it worked with Moreno and Almada pretty free to come into the midfield and almost create a box and kind of a four-man midfield with Araujo free. Araujo looked rusty, looked very rusty. I thought decision making and also the final product was just not where you expect it to be from him. First start since opening day. And they had the opportunities again. And I know like it's something that people don't want to hear anymore, but we're not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie to you and say that Atlanta was played off the park and that they were terrible and they had no chances to tie this game or win this game or any of that. No, none of that's true. That's not how it was. Atlanta did not play badly here, but when you give up two goals on set piece situations and the second one is a kind of long recycled set piece situation that you couldn't clear, and Jake Mulroney's beat 1v1 by Kamal Miller, and he puts in a cross to the near post that, no one was in that zone again because it's a recycled situation. You're not looking at like Andrew Gutman to be there because it's a set piece. He's not left back in that role. You're all over the place trying to get rid of the ball, and you couldn't. And that's the game. That's the game. That's what decides the game. It drives you insane, but that's what does it.
And I
Yeah.
and I can tell you my frustration with it was the fact that you, especially in the middle parts of the game, you put Montreal's back line in hell for a while because Montreal wasn't trying to hoof it. Like they tried
No,
to
they were
play
trying to
out,
play.
and you didn't let them. You put their back line in a special hell for a while where they were missing passes. They were getting physically knocked off the ball. Like you had Atlanta midfielders winning those ground duels and getting those turnovers, and it just wasn't as lethal as you need it to be going to goal. You create those opportunities, and guys weren't able to cash in and get big chances and put them in the back of the net. And that's, I guess for me, that's where my frustration is with it after looking at this game is a matter of you did everything right up until that final third. And whether that's guys getting back into it. We saw Luis Araujo pull the trigger on a couple that went wide and high, and I believe it was Almada who hit one that caught the outside of that caught basically the side netting as he was like going upper 90 with it.
Yeah, I don't
You
think it
had
actually
guys,
got the netting, but yes, Almada, if that
or
had went
may have
in.
caught it on if that went in, the whole place might have collapsed. But you had those opportunities where you were turning them over and getting it in a situation where the defenders are having to turn hips quickly and starting to face their own goal going the other way and trying to scramble, and you just weren't able to fully punish them. And for me, that's where a lot of that frustration was, in that you did you did the hard work, the super hard work in pressing efficiently and pressing in a system and getting the ball funneled where you wanted it to. The guys were rotating to press so that it was efficient, and then you get in the final third and you just weren't able to capitalize on it. And things either things would get too settled where then you're trying to break them down once they're established, or it's a misplaced pass or it's a shot that goes high and wide, which the shot that goes high and wide in the worst thing in the world because it's better than an open field turnover, but still frustrating.
John, any more thoughts from you after you did salty takeaways?
No, and I think that Jared is right on with what he was getting into. Obviously, there's a lot of frustration there, and I know a lot of folks who watch Atlanta United are absolutely frustrated. But once again, I'm looking at it as Luis Araujo coming in and starting. And yes, he did look rusty. That was one of the things that I did not get into, but I definitely agree that he looked rusty coming out of the block starting and for Atlanta United. But once again, you still have these relationships with guys coming back in to that point. Araujo having to reacquaint himself with what Moreno wants to do, with what Almada wants to do, and yes, it comes with time. And
reacquaint himself. He'd never started with him.
Well,
I know, but that's an important point.
Yeah,
that trio had never started together. Never. They played together a little bit at times here and there this season, but they had never started a game together.
And you're still trying to figure out, okay, well, if I do this, then how do they react, and how do all these puzzle pieces fit? I think is probably where I'm going here. And I know that we all want it to be an immediate kind of a thing. And yes, I know that you work on it Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday. But when you're in a game, it's going to take a while for these relationships to get to where you're intimately familiar with an action and a reaction. And I know that folks are frustrated about this. Once again, Atlanta United had their opportunities. You mentioned, Jarrett, you mentioned the Almada shot. I think it was in the 20th minute or something like that, where he just misses from distance. But you have all this stuff that is still a work in progress from folks who haven't been healthy 100% of the time. And you're a win out of fourth, even with all of these moving parts that still have to figure out how to put themselves together. So I'm still somewhat patient when it comes to orienting everything and making sure that everybody gets healthy. And when you have all that health, that's when I'm anticipating that you get that first one, and then it just comes at you in buckets.
Well, you're patient as opposed to what? I mean, that's the conversation that I think some are already starting to have, which is absurd to me, because it's like, okay, if you're going to be impatient, what does that mean? What do you want? Like you want to blow it up when you haven't had the team that you built start together at all. You want to blow that up? No, it doesn't make any sense. There's no logic behind that. It's not a recipe for success. You can be as frustrated as you want to be, but that's not going to make it better. That's not going to make it better. There's no way that makes it better. You're starting over. That's not good. You got to get this team continuing to build. What's frustrating, and you can be patient and you can be frustrated. You can be both. This isn't the Bird app where you can only have one emotion at a time. You can be both, and you should be both, because they've been the better team in 2 games on the road, and it's hard enough to win games on the road. It's hard enough to be the better team in games on the road. They're the better team in 2 straight on the road, and they got nothing to show for it. Those opportunities don't come about all the time, because it's very hard on the road in this league. Montreal is one of the toughest places to play. Outplayed them, but why did you not have full control of this game and give up a goal in the 4th minute? That's a game changer. Montreal can take not their foot off the gas, and they didn't really do that, but they can be more comfortable.
They can absorb
be under pressure. Yeah, and they didn't sit back to absorb you and say we don't want to play. No, but they also don't have to risk as much when they have that lead. They can say, man, we want to play, but these guys are pretty good in pressing us. Let's play it long and reset. And then when you get the goal, and I think people have criticized Atlanta after getting the goal, that's the hard thing in these situations. And it does go back to giving up the first goal. You're fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting to get back to level terms. And you do. You have a natural reaction of, okay, we can play now. We can just calm down and we can play now. And you take that breath. And the other team, who has been breathing fine, is able to then say, all right, let's go get it. And so many times you see a team at their most vulnerable after they score in that situation. Now, Atlanta handled it, even though they were under it there for a little bit. Montreal came at him, and Montreal was good, and Atlanta was kind of regrouping after fighting so hard to get level. But it's another set piece that ends up doing it, and you just aren't able to get it clear. I thought Franco Ibarra was very good in this game. We're talking about it on the way up to Montreal.
He was good from like the second minute on. Dude made it a stupid tackle just before the goal.
He was good all the way around. And we were talking about it on the way up as to what options there would be if Sosa doesn't go. And Ibarra was the one that I kept coming back to because I've been comfortable with him on the ball more so than last year. And I love his defensive ability, and I love what he brings in terms of a physical presence in the midfield. And I mean, if you're looking for anything that is lacking with this group for me that affects why you're not getting results right now, of course, finding the back of the net, but you're missing Joseph Martinez, and other guys you got a goal on the road the last two, but you need more. Okay. That's got to change. We know that, but we know what you're missing as well. You're also missing somebody like Osvaldo Alonso, who knows when to throw himself into a tackle to get the team going. Sometimes it's not that, like we talked about with Greg Garza on Friday, sometimes it's not that captain yelling and pointing and gesticulating and being a vocal person on the field that gets a team going. Sometimes it is flying into that tackle. Sometimes it is decking somebody. Sometimes it's those situations where you manage it. You know, you can take a yellow card here, but it's going to be an impactful yellow card for your team. And I think Franco Ibarra gives you that physical presence. He doesn't give you the vocal presence. He just turned 21. You know, this is his second year in the U.S. He only had one full campaign, which was a Copa de la Liga in Argentina. So he's still finding his feet as a professional. But I like what he brings to the team. He gives them a different personality on the field, and he's good enough on the ball to fit in the way that this team plays. It's just frustrating because you're not playing as bad as the results are indicating you're playing. But it doesn't matter when the results aren't there. And yes, you do have to have patience because of the situation with injuries, with trying to get a consistent team on the field, with those things, because they're real. And I'm so tired of somebody telling me you can't use that as an excuse anymore. It's not an excuse, it's a fact. Saying the team has had injuries to deal with this season is an unmitigated fact. And if you try to ignore that, you're just sticking your head in the sand for no good reason. It's real. You've missed a lot of games. You're missing a lot of key pieces. And you haven't had a game where you've played your front four together. You haven't had a training session where they've been on the field together. That's important. That's a fact. It's a factor. It's not an excuse. It's real. Losing Alonso and right now with Sosa, and hopefully it is a short-term thing. It sounds like it's a very short-term thing. He could be back this week. It's tough, but that wasn't a problem in this game. That's what is impressive about it, is that part wasn't a problem. It was set-piece defending, which is going to be difficult for this team every single day, as it has been since day one the team started. I mean, we talked about set-piece defending, Jarrett, I think in 2017, plenty. Talked about it in 18. Talked about it in 19. We talked about it in 20. We talked about it in 21. And it's not as simple as just go practice harder. That's not what it is. You're not going to build a team the way that people want to play, and I think the way this club wants to play. You're not going to build a team that the priority is set pieces. Some teams do. Some teams flat out do. That's how some teams choose to play. Okay. You're going to struggle at times against those teams. You got to find a way to deal with it. One, you don't give up dangerous set pieces. That's one. That's hard to do. It's easy to say, hard to do. Two, you've got to find the ways to make it difficult for a Kamal Miller to get a free, clean header at the back post. Not even all the way past the back post. Like it's way too
that's
clean.
more of like on the back side of the six. It wasn't on the back post. It shouldn't have been that easy. But
No.
I will say though that at the risk of annoyance with it,
I give up on the annoyance, Jared. By the way, I give up because I've been yelled at way too much since this game ended, and I had nothing to do with the game, so I give up with the annoyance. I'll annoy
at the risk of
people all I
annoyance
want.
with the way Atlanta defends. I mean, I do give credit to, because and this popped into my mind watching the Nashville game yesterday late. I give credit to the likes of Montreal and some of these teams. They're putting good balls in the box, and
Yeah,
they're doing
playing
their
Islanders
job,
is
and you're
great.
not doing your job. Because watching the end of the Nashville game yesterday, where Philadelphia gets the last kick of the game as a corner, and it's too close.
Yeah,
It's right to Joe Willis. You're getting you're asking teams to put good balls in the box, and they're doing it in the same way that you want to see good balls put in the box, and teams are executing it. They're doing their job, and right now you're not doing yours. And how you deal with that, I can't tell you what to do, but it does. The players and the coaches can sit there and tell you all day what they're doing and what they're trying to do, but does come down to execution from the players, and it's going to be tough. And you're going to have to, if you're going to be in those situations where teams are going to be coming after you like that, you are going to have to put the ball in the back of the net, and somebody's going to have to step up and be that guy consistently. Because yeah, you can create chances, but somebody does have to step up, because last time I checked, number 7 is not out there. And we don't know, how long it's going to take him to ramp back up when he does come back out there, because he's going to be coming off an extended layoff. He's going to be coming off from going under the knife. Yeah, it's not an ACL repair again, but it's still probably going to take time for him to ramp back up. So until then, whether it's a Cisneros, whether it is a Jackson Conway, a Dom Dwyer when he's healthy, you know, sucks for Dom that he picks up an injury the night he has 2 goals and an assist, and does the full Tati hat trick, where
I
you're
think
thinking,
it's
okay, this is something that he could have built off of.
yeah.
And
I
then
think because of that, it's going to be Cisneros, and
I think
I'm
so
good with
too.
that. I'm good with that because look, he's got to build up chemistry with this group right now. He's got to play these games, and you got to continue to figure out what runs he wants. You got to figure out, where he's going to go if you're going to deliver a pass, what he's trying to get. You had one really good sequence where Almada played it into him, and he spun and turned the defender and drew a yellow card top of the box. That Almada's free kick was a great save from Brezo, where he gets low with his left hand down to the left side.
Yeah, that was infuriating too, because there were moments in that game where Brazo looked woefully terrified of everything in front of him, like a
No, he
cat
looked
crossing the interstate
No, he looked
with the ball at
terrified
his
with.
feet.
Yes, he didn't look terrified making saves. He
Yeah,
made a few big saves, which it's just part of the game. It happens.
yeah.
But I think
Oh yeah.
Cisneros is going to be the guy. You've got to continue to build the chemistry with him and these attackers. Almada and Moreno were both the second highly rated players by SofaScore in this. Their stats back it up. Kamal Miller was the man of the match. Duh. He had a goal and an assist in a 2-1 win. That's easy. I thought he had 2 moments. Honestly, I thought on the ball he wasn't great at times, and I thought he had some poor defensive plays, but he scores a goal on a set piece where he's way too open, and he wins a 1v1 duel against Jake Mulroney and puts in a cross. And that's going to be a match winner. But outside of that, Atlanta was very good, but you get nothing to show for it. And when we have these conversations on this show, that's what we're talking about, is the whole game, because that's what you have to get into. If you're just going to live on 2-minute highlights, or you're just going to live on bad things, then you make bad decisions for the long term. You make bad decisions for the long haul. Now, the question that, is starting to ramp up, and I think it's a fair one, is we've seen the rumors. Now, I think the Kyle Laren rumors that were bouncing around late last week were an agent trying to get
That
action
was
for his
wild.
client. I think that's just trying to get action and naming teams, which Atlanta will always get into that
Well,
conversation.
especially considering some of the reports out of Turkey were that he's comfortable there and his agent is the problem.
It's all
So
look.
yeah,
You think English media is bad? You think Argentine media is
but
crazy? Turkish media and rumors is a whole nother level of
that's what I
chaos.
mean. That's what I mean. That I think you're right. That it's
I don't
agents
know.
talking. It's people floating clubs and names to get traction, to grease wheels, to get things
Sure.
moving, to try and get more money down the road. It's fun to banter about, because I know in a vacuum, the idea of like, hey, Orlando's remember that number 1 overall pick Orlando had that was really fun? Yeah, we stole him. It's fun to talk about in a vacuum, but just don't go run to the presses.
I'm not buying that one. The Matthew Hoppe one, I mean, you got to convince Mallorca of letting him go before the end of their season. Maybe losing to Barcelona helps that. I don't know. Maybe it hurts it. I don't know. But if you want to get that done before the end of the day Wednesday, you got a lot of convincing to do. Is there something else? Well, that's how this stuff goes typically. There wasn't really much chatter about Luis Araujo coming in until it was done. And that's the surprising element that you're going to get into here with a couple days left in a window where you can add a piece and you're struggling to score goals and your starting number 9 is out. Do you go add a piece there? Are you going to believe in Cisneros to be the one who can tide you over, and also believe in Joseph coming back before the January or the July window and being able to contribute? Or if you have concerns, can you go address that? Do you need to address anything else? Do you need to address that physical veteran kind of a presence? Do you need to go get somebody there? You got a couple of days to sort it out. So it could get interesting over these next couple of days. That's one thing that's going on here. The other is just you've got to keep your head in this situation. And I think Gonzalo Pineda is the right man to do it. And I think his staff are the right people to do it, because when you play well and don't get results for it, of course you're going to be frustrated. I'm talking about the players, and I'm talking about the staff, and I'm talking about generally the people who are related to, putting the team on the field. Of course you're going to be frustrated. You should be. That's the point. You want to win these games, even though you're on the road, even though it's tough, even though Montreal's got a great record at Stade Saputo. You want to win these games coming into it. You create a plan to win the game. You give up a goal early and the plan gets blown up a bit, but you play well. And the tactics that were, designed for the day, I thought worked. I thought they played very well in the run of play. I thought they outplayed Montreal in the run of play by a wide margin. But on the set pieces, Montreal ends up hurting you, and you leave another game without a result for it, where you played well. That stuff wears on you. Gonzalo Pineda and his staff are going to have a lot of probably conversations this week with players, because you've got to keep spirits up. You've got to keep them believing in the quality of the play, which is a real thing. And I know, again, whenever you talk about quality of play, you don't talk about a result and the same thing. It gets people riled up, but it's a real thing. If you're playing bad and getting results, you also have to address why you're playing bad. You're happy you're getting the results, but you don't just ignore that you're playing poorly. So it's the same thing. You're playing well. You don't make all these dramatic changes to affect playing well. You don't want to lose that. You've got to keep spirits up, because it's easy to get frustrated, and you've got to figure out why you're playing well and not getting the results. You've got to make whatever tweaks you can without affecting what is working well. That's a lot. That's hard. That's difficult. And it's a big test for Gonzalo Pineda and his staff. I absolutely believe that Gonzalo is the right guy for this. I think he's got the right personality for it. I think his time in Seattle with somebody like Brian Schmetzer, who is great at these situations, I think it's key. I think Pineda's time as a player being in these situations himself is key. And I think he's going to get through that part of it and get this team back to where it needs to be, with results matching the quality of play. Because you don't want it to be either way. You're not going to be sustainable if you're playing bad and getting results. It's just not sustainable. You're going to lose that run at some point. Reverse is true as well. When you're playing well, generally you're going to get results. When you're playing well and not getting results, that's not sustainable actions either. That's not going to continue. What generally happens in this is either it's one of two things. It turns around and you're playing well, you continue playing well, and the results come. We've seen that happen many, many times over the years with different teams. Or you stop playing well because you're not getting the results. That's the part you can't have. That's the part that you've got to stave off. And that's the test for the coaching staff, because these guys are human beings. They don't enjoy playing a team off the park and then giving up a couple goals on set pieces and not getting anything out of this. That's not enjoyable. They don't enjoy people screaming at them on social media. They don't enjoy getting people in their comment section on Instagram and those kinds of things. Nobody enjoys that. So, how does it affect you? Does it give you more momentum to go forward and say, blank these guys? We're going and we're going to win. We're start winning these games. Does it kind of give you that momentum to get nasty on the field at times and get physical and be kind of that heel on the field when you need to be, maybe. Does it put some people, some players into a funk? It can. And that's what you've got to avoid. That's the challenge here. The mentality is going to be key right now. The mentality with the Chicago Fire team coming to town, who is not a good offensive team, a team that had 2 red cards on the weekend. One of their center backs is out. You're getting them at home. You're getting back to your fortress where, Atlanta hasn't lost in, I think, 11 straight. But you need more than a point here. You need 3. You've got to get the mentality where you want. I think the play is where you want. The play as a whole. I'm not talking about a set piece situation. I'm talking about the play across the board. I think it's good. You can always be better. But the mentality is very important here. And you don't have you do in terms of in the locker room at the training ground, you have a Brad Kazan, you have an Osvaldo Alonso talking to the guys, and they're going to be really important this week. But on the field, because they're not there after, they're not there in the build up to that set piece in Montreal. They're not there when there's a corner coming up in the game this weekend. They're not on the field. They're not the ones who can say, don't let it slip. Don't let it slip. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. They're not there to do that. And you're not going to be able to hear them from wherever they are in the stadium. Somebody's got to be that. And if that is, I don't care who it is at this point. If it's Alan Franco, if it's Bobby Shuttleworth, if it's Franco Ibarra, whoever it is, you've got to have that. And that's the hardest thing when you get into this situation where you lose Kazan, you lose Alonso, you lose Joseph, who are those kinds of guys on the field. Somebody's got to be that. Somebody has to be that. And the mentality across the board has to be very strong this week of a little bit of a blank you kind of vibe. Like, you need that. And it's not that I don't know where it comes from. I think it's a fair question right now because of the absences. So we will find out where it comes from. Some of it's got to come from the coaching staff, and somebody's got to pick that up and run with it. And we'll see who it is, because it's going to be key here. You can play well and not get results, but sometimes mentality will get you through that situation. You can't let it fall the other way, where after a while of playing well and not getting results, that you don't play well. You don't consistently play well after that. Can't let that part slip. We'll see where it goes. I'm sure we've already angered probably 543 people who listen to the show, whether live or on downloads, because that seems to be the reaction I've gotten since the game on Saturday. So what do we have in the Twitch pitch, John?
All right, so let's start with Nick's pretty much off the top. He said that watched the post-game presser this morning. Based on his comments, and even though he's new in quotation marks, that Andrew Gutman should be our captain. Talked about accountability, mentality, and grit, which this team, I think, is sorely lacking right now.
He can be. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be the captain because, again, he doesn't have to have the armband to speak up. He's not a vocal guy on the field. He's not a vocal guy in the locker room. That's not his personality. Speaking in a press conference is a completely different situation. Look, everybody's going to zero in on grit. That's what we do when there's results that aren't going well. And the next one, I'm sure, will start to be like, oh, this guy's not playing hard, and this guy's not trying, and this guy doesn't care. That's generally where we go when there's not an easy explanation for why a mistake happens. It's unfair. It's not cool to have that happen to guys. But in this one, can Gutman be a more important presence in that aspect of it? Sure, he can. But he's got to be comfortable doing it. And that's the other part of it. Like, if he is willing to be more vocal in the locker room before a training session, after a training session, what have you, I don't think he's going to be told to shut up. That's not how it works. So he's got to do that. And from getting to see him a little bit and learning more about him, that's not something he's really ever been in a position to do anywhere he's been. and it's not really part of his personality. So yes, his post-game comments are good. They're fine. I have no problem with them at all. But that doesn't always translate to being that person in a squad. It's a different situation. I don't think anybody's going to prevent him from doing that, is the basic response here. And we'll see if he's comfortable, being more of that person. We'll see if he can do that.
Early point made by Shiva, and folks have been talking back and forth about this particular point in the timeline. Shiva says the next month is key. Win 3 home games and we're good. We don't, and we're in trouble.
No, I'm not going to play that game. Every game's important right now because look at the East. You are 1 win from DC at the bottom of the table and 1 loss for you. They pass you. That's the bottom. You're also 3 points away from 4th. The East is a street fight. It's going to be. That's not going to go away. So it's not this month is more important than the next month or the next one or whatever. It's every game's important now. If you had the start that Philadelphia's had or others have had, if you have had the recent form of like an NYC, you're in a different mindset about what's coming up. But right now, where this team is and the results that they've dropped while playing well, yeah, every game matters. It's going to be every game until you build a cushion away from the rest of the group. And if that doesn't happen, then every game is essentially like a final. And that's brutal. It's brutal. It's tough. It wears on you after a while. And we'll see if they're mentally strong enough to handle it, because that's the reality. It's not just that next month. It's every game. And for me, it's especially the home games, because the home games are the ones where you're expected to get 3. The road games, if you get 3, it's wonderful. But the home games, you are expected to get 3. And you got to have those performances across the board with the mentality at home for the rest of the year. And I think the Eastern Conference is going to prevent you from looking at this one's more critical than that. I think the Eastern Conference, every conference game is going to be brutal the rest of the season.
Point about Breza, actually, this morning in the timeline from Coco. The Montreal goalkeeper really needs work with his feet. For those that give Brad grief about his footwork, unwarranted, by the way, this Montreal guy shows how bad it can be.
Jarrett, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was he was terrifying with his feet.
Yeah.
The dude looked like a kitten. He
ball.
Looked like a kitten trying to cross the street with the ball at his feet. He made some fantastic saves. He had shot stopping down pat. 2 free kick saves he made. The first one to me was the really impressive one. I think Moreno hit that goes bottom keeper's left-hand corner. So that's the 4-hole, John? Lower left side.
Yes.
So he tried it. So I think it was Moreno who hit it and basically tries to use the wall as a blind screen and then try to go to that far corner. And Breza somehow gets enough sight of it and reaches out and pushes it wide. Great on shot stopping. Dude was a bomb scare with the ball at his feet. And credit to Atlanta for stepping up and like not making it easy for him. Like, and it was that thing where you don't necessarily have to press the keeper straight up. You don't have to put somebody literally in his face jumping at him, but they put pressure on his easy passes and forced him into a situation where he had to decide, do I play this high risk pass close that's 15 yards away? Or, where do I go with this? It was like watching a quarterback make progressions under pressure. Atlanta took away his easy passes, and it looked like he wasn't comfortable when you did that.
Yeah, Breza's a great shot stopper, but he did look uncomfortable with the ball at his feet, and you've got to try to force that and make it difficult. And when you look at the numbers, they were more aggressive with pressures in the attacking third than typical. And that was, I think, a big part because of Breza and because of Miller, who was not good in those moments either. He gave the ball away a good bit. The press was good. The forcing of turnovers was good. The defensive actions here were great. Again, everything from the run of play was great. I have no problems with the run of play in this game from Atlanta United's perspective, except you'd like to get one more goal from the run of play. Sure. You'd like to get better chances from the run of play. These are things we say every game, every team. It's the reality unless you're NYC and you score 6 at home. You always want more. But from the run of play, Defensively, no problems. You pressed. You caused them to turn the ball over. They couldn't build up. All that was really good. And the pressures up high were a big part of it for preventing Montreal from getting any kind of a rhythm and only having 27% of the ball in the first half.
Other comments on the board from GH about Marcelino Moreno. Aside from the goal, he's been mediocre. There were times when Gutman was open and unmarked, yet Moreno would pass it to Cisneros, who was marked.
I have to thoroughly and utterly disagree that Marcelino Moreno and mediocre go in the same sentence. Like, can he make a different decision at times? Sure, he can. Can he make something out of nothing like he did on the goal? Yep. And he's done that many times too. No, I thoroughly disagree that Marcelino Moreno's been mediocre. I'm sorry. I can't agree with that.
If I can, like, here's the way that, I mean, personally, the way I watch Moreno is, I mean, a lot of times Moreno is that dude who's going to, we see this in other sports of you have that athlete who's going to try stuff. Or he's going to try and turn things on his head a bit with his ability to win 1v1s. I mean, he won a 1v2 to get side of a goal with his goal. I mean, there are going to be times where he goes through a spell where 10 minutes where he's turned it over 4 times because he tries to dribble you and it doesn't come off. And he's trying to find that game-breaking pass that doesn't come off. And when it doesn't come off, it doesn't come off. To their credit, it hasn't been in positions where it's not like it's a critical turnover, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like he's
that's
turning
very
it over.
important.
He's turning it over when he does turn it over, and yeah, he does.
Everybody does. Every player like that does.
He turns it over in spots that haven't crippled you. You've been crippled by your inability to efficiently mark on set pieces and defend on set pieces. And more importantly, this goes back to last year. The DC game at the end of the season sticks in my head for this one. Recycled balls have just it's been a pain. It's been a pain for everybody to deal with. But it's kind of like that guy who swings big because he's going to swing and miss on some of those. But when he connects with it, and it goes the metaphorical 450 feet, you get a situation like you had Saturday, or you get a situation like he did against DC last year where he dribbled half the damn team and, laid off George Bello for a tap in. You're going to take guys, and this is why my whole thing was that I said a couple weeks ago, for me, Thiago Almada is your conductor. I need Marcelino Moreno to be my concert master. I need him to be my first chair violinist. I don't need him necessarily to run everything. I like the idea of Almeida sitting more centrally and, floating in and out when he has to. When you get those opportunities, when guys are pulling people out of space and changing out, and you're not going to sit in a designated zone like you're in timeout and you're 4 years old. But being that guy that when the ball is on his feet, he's going to take that opportunity and try and beat someone. Because if he does, it's going to pull the defense out of whack and it's going to create an opportunity. If it doesn't, that's just part of it. But you've got to at some point have somebody who goes for it. That being said, I can understand the frustration at times, because up until it comes off and you get something like you saw Saturday, or you get some of those brilliant moments, it can absolutely be frustrating to watch. I mean, I don't blame anyone for getting frustrated when it's not coming off. And you'll go through slumps where it's not coming off.
But here's the thing, Jarrett, and this is always my answer to this, that it's unfair because, okay, so when it happens, it's good, but if he has a turnover, then he's mediocre.
No,
all or nothing.
I don't think he's mediocre.
No, but you can't have a player who is that guy, and if they don't win every dribbling duel, then it's bad and it's frustrating and it's bad, and they can't do that anymore because then they don't try anything, and then you don't have anything. That's just you can't do that to players who are attacking players like this. You can't have that mentality about them. Phil Foden turned the ball over a bunch against Real Madrid. He's a bum, I guess. He's mediocre. No, he's not. He tries stuff. Hani Mukhtar played exactly like Marcelino Moreno yesterday for Nashville. Exactly. And there's not some campaign about he's terrible, he's bad. He's been producing a lot. Good for him. He has. But you go through this when you are that attacking player who will try stuff. Clint Dempsey had it. Go through any player like that who is a brilliant 1v1 player who is a brilliant player that forces teams to commit 2 players to him. They have to believe in themselves. They have to believe they can put the team on their back. They have to believe they can win this dribble. And they have to play that way. Marcelino Moreno, like, I have no idea why somebody who you go through the stats. He progresses the ball forward more than any regulars on the pass and on the dribble. So one thing people complain about is, they pass sideways. Marcelino Moreno leads the team in progressive actions, dribbling or passing. You combine it, that's what he leads the team in. He has led the team for a few years now as a dangerous attacker. Is he going to win every dribbling duel? No, he will not. Nobody will, by the way. Not one person in the world will do that every game. But you can't play this game from a position of fear. You can't play it from a position in his role. You can if you're a defensive midfielder. You're not asking that guy to make the plays that Marcelino Moreno is. But when you're that attacker, it is creativity. It is individual brilliance. It is finding those opportunities to do that. That's the point. That's the point. And when you start to turn on these guys, I don't get it. I don't, because then you don't want teams to take chances. You don't want teams to take dribbling opportunities. You don't want that. And really then you're trying to pass your way to open up a team, which will mean you're going to pass it backwards and sideways sometimes. Or you're going to be playing for set pieces or whatever, or you're going to be bombing it long and pressing. Like that. Those are the things this team's not going to do. So yes, you want him to win every dribbling duel, but when you start getting frustrated when he doesn't, or getting to the point that he's not good, and I would assume mediocre is going to be on that kind of side of things, I just disagree with it. I just disagree, and I wonder if there's an understanding of what his job is versus other people's jobs in the team. So I don't know. That's how I feel about it.
The way I end this, as I'm wrapping up, I'll try and be back later, but I do have to jump off for a bit. I guess the way I see him, if we want to cross sports references, which is kind of what I'm going to do anyway, so just kind of grin and bear it, y'all. Moreno to me operates a lot like what peak Justin Upton was. Peak Justin Upton, he struck out a lot. He missed on things, but he also, when it hit, it was game changing. And anybody and everybody wanted that on their team, because no one's gonna bat 1,000, whether it's dribbles, whether it's going for that wild pass. Go back to the stupid long diagonal that he hit against Charlotte that frees up Jake Mulroney. He's going to try some of these, call them low percentage passes, that if they hit, they're game breaking. It's hard to sit there and not want those guys on your team, even though they're going to miss on things. So yeah, I mean, in this game though, Jarrett,
Marcelino Moreno had 4 incomplete passes out of 44.
I'm just talking about him in general.
I know,
because he's such a polarizing topic.
But it's insane that he is a polarizing topic. That's the whole point. Like, what do you want from the guy? Like that's where I get back to this, and like that he's a topic is crazy in my mind.
And Michael, to your point, yeah, he is slower than Miggy. We said this at the time, and I know you've been part of that conversation for a while, man. And so I know I still think there are people around this league who don't understand what a unicorn Miguel Almiron was, because of what he was able to do with the ball and how just damn fast he was. And how good even though the man basically, he could have caught off his right foot and not much would have changed at times. He was such a damn unicorn. I think it's dangerous to compare anybody to Almiron, because he just on the physical aspect of it, because he was such a unique player physically.
He wasn't
not just on the skills, but just with physical skills.
Miguel Almiron wasn't consistently beating people on the dribble like Marcelino Moreno beats people on the dribble. He was beating people with pace. It's a different conversation. It's a different situation.
Yeah, Will.
Not the same.
2012 Justin Upton is now, you're right, that's the perfect MLB player these days. If he gets a shot, by the way, he's going to probably break Reggie Jackson's career strikeout record. But
Probably.
That's his life.
Yeah. Are you out, Jared, or do you have anything else? For you?
I am out. I'm going to. I'll be back most likely. If you hear the music, then you know it's too late. It's kind of like the backdraft on a fire.
Yes, basically.
But yeah, we'll have written content up about this whole weekend as a whole, just because there was a lot to talk about outside of just Atlanta. So, and yeah,
cool. We'll see you in a little bit, maybe, possibly, or we'll see you tonight.
That's the plan. See you in a bit.
Cool. All right, we got a natural break here, John. So why don't you go ahead and tell everybody about Eliminize?
I can do that. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch for Eliminize service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. There's one place that you need to go. It is Eliminize service, deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. Eliminize service has created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors like pet cigarettes and food. Realtors and property managers use the Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process that makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment we like that these days. Offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Different than our favorite masking agents that we have under the sink, because when you take out that masking agent, you spray it in the air, that's all it does. Masks the odor. It doesn't attack the problem. Eliminize service with their proven scientific formula destroys odor down to the molecule. Pricing is easy, one of two ways, either by cubic feet or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any other questions that I did not address, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's their website, eliminize.com. But do us a favor here at SDH. After the .com, go /Atlanta, so they know what part of the world that you are talking to them from. So your full assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, eliminize.com /Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
Nicely done. All right, what else we got?
A couple of other points from the Marcelino Moreno discussion that I wanted to add in before heading back into other thoughts. And so, of course, now I can't find them. But, here we go. Moreno was really good until late. This is from David. Made some bad turnovers late as he tired. Through 65 minutes, he excelled. I suspect his last 20 minutes stats were not all that great.
Yeah, I don't have a breakdown of that. I'm not able to do that easily. Yeah, he probably got tired. He probably did. Again, I think when you're, for a lot of that, it goes back to giving up the goal in the fourth minute. When you fall behind, you are pushing to get back into it. You're pushing to equalize. It takes more out of you. Just think about like anything that you go through in your day where, if you got a big meeting at work and you put a lot of pressure on yourself from it and you get through it and it's over, you're exhausted. You're tired. You're tired mentally. You're tired. You might be tired physically. That's what it's like when you give up a goal early and you're fighting your way back in. It takes more out of you than 65 minutes normally would. So it's tough. It's tough. Sure. I mean, a lot of late in games, you got tired legs everywhere. So that's typical. That's just soccer.
And it was another point from El Modaflo. Moreno's the closest thing on this team we have to Miggy for the hashtag replacement folks out there.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't one, but sure. In terms of some of the things that he does, yes. In terms of the way he plays, no. But in terms of carrying the ball forward, absolutely. He was first in the league last year in progressive carries. I think it's a 5-yard mark of carrying the ball forward on the dribble. He was first. He's sixth this year. Carries into the final third. He was third last year. He's sixth this year. Carries into the penalty area. He was seventh last year. Fouls drawn. He was first last year in the league. He's second this year in the league, and he hasn't played as many minutes as some of the guys around him. Players dribbled past to eliminate defenders. He was fifth in the league last year. Shot creating actions. He was sixth in the league last year. All these different things are Miggy-esque in terms of production. The way he goes about it, no, because he doesn't have that speed. Miguel didn't really have to get very often stood up with a player and find a way to progress the ball forward, either on the dribble or as a pass. He would generally be blowing past people. And that was his role. And that was a different role than Marcelino Moreno is in. And he's a different player. So we will see where that goes. But yeah, I think in terms of what he gives the team, sure, I can buy that. But the way he plays, and maybe it's why some people have always been down on Marcelino, I don't know. He's not Miguel Almiron, and he's not going to be. He's just a different player. He has different characteristics.
Ricky Ricardo, I said this when PT signed and when Moreno signed, they were going to get compared to Miggy solely based on the number. Retire the 10, solve half the issue.
Yeah, you can't. It's not how it works. But yeah, I mean, numbers have meaning at clubs. And that's a good thing because that means you have some history. People have to keep it in context. And I think more importantly, people around have to keep it in context rather than just the fan base. Because Pity Martinez and Marcelino Moreno, I mean, those two are far more similar to one another than they are to Miguel Almiron in terms of the way that they play. So you got to understand the differences, even though they wear the same number. They're not doing the same things, and it's unfair to criticize a player based off not being somebody else. That's never a fair criticism in this.
Just going through Marcelino Moreno's numbers really quickly from yesterday, just some of the numbers that stood out. 2 successful dribble attempts. You mentioned accurate passes, 40 of 44, 91% completion rate there. 4 of 5 on his long balls yesterday. 2 key passes, and he won 8 ground duels yesterday. So
on Saturday.
Saturday. Yes, Saturday. Last time they played, 2 days ago, not yesterday. Yeah. But that's just some of the numbers that Marcelino Moreno had. Tied with Thiago Almada from our friends at SofaScore with a 7.7 rating.
He was 2 of 7 on the dribble, and if that means he's a bad player, then he's a bad player. And there's a lot of players here, bad players. It's not easy to win your dribbling duels, and he does it a lot more than a lot of people. So, I mean, it's just that's part of what you're doing. And when a team gets an early goal, and when a team is then able to sit back deeper and play a line of 5, it's not a lot of space. There's not a lot of space to attack in. How do you break that down? Break it down in the 1v1 situations. I'd love for him to be 4 of 7 rather than 2 of 7. But would that change anybody's idea of if he's good or not? I don't know if 2 more dribbles would, to be honest. I don't think it's that. I don't know. It's just that's his game, and that's what you're asking him to do. And on a team right now that is trying to break down opposing teams, and in this case, conceding early, where it's even harder to do it, you've got to have that 1v1 ability. It's crucial.
Will, back in the Twitch pitch timeline from earlier, he says he thinks Atlanta needs to put more bodies in the box when attacking. When you have only 2 or at most 3 guys in the box, you're going against 5, 6, or 7 defenders. Makes it significantly tougher to get on loose balls and rebounds. Doesn't pressure the defense enough.
When you're pumping in crosses, yes. When you're trying to build up the play through the middle, no. And I think the recognition of where each specific attack is going to take you is important in that. If you get it wide and you're looking for the cross and you're going to commit to putting in the cross, then yeah, you need people in the box to get on the end of it. You don't need all of them in the same spot. You need some around the top of the box to deal with any half clearances, whatever. If you're building up the play through the middle, or it looks like the play is going to come back to the middle to build up the play for a through ball, then no, you honestly don't want those people on that top line because you want the space. So that's the balance, and that's a tough thing. And you've got to get in sync with that. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of that. But what Will's saying for me is only specifically on, okay, late in a game, and I think that's why Jackson Conway comes into this one, and you go 2 up top. Late in a game, you're not going to have as much time and you're not going to have the space because the opponent's going to sit deeper to try to protect what they have. You're probably going to put in crosses at that point, and you're probably going to put in more crosses at that point than you'd be comfortable. But then you've got to have more bodies in the box to try to get on the end of those crosses or the deflections or rebounds, etc. Game state's important.
Yes. Colonel's in this morning. Atlanta United put out their best available 11, played well, lost, and sit 2 points off of dead last in the table. Swansea's mired mid-table, completing 500 passes a match with 65% possession. Football is weird.
It is, and it's not. And people will look at possession and be pro or nay. I've always said that I want teams who want the ball. I don't need a possession number to quantify that, but I want teams that want the ball. I don't like teams in general, from my personal tastes, that don't want the ball. You can be successful either way. And you can be successful in this sport in a lot of different ways. You can be successful off of set pieces. You can be successful off of pressing. You can be successful off of having the ball and wearing teams down. All of it's valid. And that's what's so amazing about the sport is I don't think it's like any other game in the world in that there are so many different approaches that can have success in it. I mean, I think what you see in the NBA and what you see in the NFL in terms of what works for a defense or what works for an offense or what works from a style of play, they become more homogenous in those sports. I think even college football, I mean, of course, you get your outliers of somebody who does something crazy, but are they actually winning a whole bunch of things? No, they're not. They might get some attention because it's different. They might win a little more than they should, but they're not winning. And that's not where Atlanta United wants to be. They want to win. They don't want to just be winning a few more games than maybe people think they should. They want to be competing for trophies. That's the job. So you've got to do what you think is best and build the team around what you think is best. This team was built to play the way that they do, and they've got to get results playing this way because you're not going to see them turn into a defensive team. They're not built to do that. They don't want to do that. Even though, I mean, the fan base is now hung up on results versus way of playing. In 2019, it was the reverse. The results were good, and the way of playing wasn't what people wanted. So, I mean, I don't know what would be accepted, honestly, but I don't think being a defensive team and putting numbers behind the ball consistently and just trying to play on the counter, I don't think this team's built to do that. I don't think they have the mentality to do that. I don't think it would suit them. So that's not what they should do, but you know, I don't know what people really want outside of results. And 2019 was the one that threw me with they're getting results, but then it was style. Maybe now because of what 2020 was and what 2021 was in the first half, because the results were there in the second half. You can look at Gonzalo's numbers once he took over. The results were there. They were one of the best teams in the league. Gets lost a lot of times in all this, but that, again, it's a fact. Now it's about results. Now it's about results, and you've got to find a way to be true to who you are and get those results. And that's for every team in the world. I mean, Swansea's in that. Barcelona's been in that. Barcelona went through 3 losses in a row, and then it's Xavi's great. And then it's, Xavi's got to deal with this, and can Xavi do it? And the way you do it is you double down on who you are, and you perform better at who you are. But when you start changing who you are in a bad run of results, you're probably not going to fix it that way. It's very rare that you do. And we'll see what triggers it here for Atlanta United. Hopefully it is getting home and finding the back of the net, and hopefully that becomes contagious. But you got to clean up the set piece defending. You've got to just continue to control games, especially at home, but get the results for it.
And speaking on that line, David says, as a Browns fan, blowing it up isn't a good answer. It doesn't translate to winning anytime soon.
You don't blow it up when you're where Atlanta United's been under Gonzalo Pineda. He's 10-7-5. You're not blowing anything up. And anybody who's calling for that, I'm sorry. I've said it many, many times over the years. So this is not a specific opinion based off of this situation. The hashtag out crew about anything is just the dumbest thing ever. And it's not how clubs are run. It's not how teams are run. It's not what gets results. It's not what works. When you're going through a whole bunch of managers, you're going through a whole bunch of changes like that. And it doesn't always have to be like deep philosophical changes about the way your club is going to run or play. Every manager has tweaks on even fitting in that philosophy. Gabriel Heinze is not Gonzalo Pineda and vice versa. And they're not Frank de Boer and they're not Tata Martino. Okay. They all fit in the overall box of how Atlanta United wants to be. And I think Gonzalo is going to get this. But right now, just a challenge for him. It's a different challenge. It's a different challenge than when he walked in the door, I think. But maybe there are some similarities at that point. You have a very talented team that has not been able to play together very much. You have some mistakes and some breakdowns that are happening. And I think some of it is due to having a team that hasn't played together very much. You have a team that, when you have these situations for an extended period, and a few games can be an extended period, you worry about the mentality slipping. You worry about the mood slipping. You worry about those things because you don't want the play to slip. Because the play has not been bad. The play has been very good, actually. But you worry about the vibe, the mood, the mentality. And those are the things that, more so than tactics this week, those are the things that I think, are the focal points. And it is a test. All good managers go through these situations. And the best get through it. And the best, get to the other side of it. And I think Gonzalo absolutely has the ability to be that. And I think he's got the perfect personality for this situation. And you have to rally the troops. You have to get them ready to go.
Alex Pacine this morning, the real problem with asking for patience is that you need to earn that privilege. You say, please be patient. We'll work through this because we believe in what we're doing. However, if the club itself is not patient and continues to perpetually put itself in a rebuilding mindset, the ask is unreasonable. I don't care if the style stayed similar throughout or not. We've had 6 guys in charge over 5.5 years. The club needs to steady itself. The fans can be calm or go nuts. It doesn't matter.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the way that I've felt it. I have not felt that the club has not been stable. Tata Martino decided to leave. That wasn't the club making a decision. That was Tata making a decision. Frank de Boer, obviously it sounds like there were bigger issues than the play on the field, which he had a successful 2019. People can say what they want about it, but that's a successful year. When you win the Open Cup, you're the 3rd best team in the regular season. You lose in the conference final. That's a successful year. 2020, it fell apart for a lot of reasons, and he's out the door. Gabriel Heinze didn't work out. That's really the first one that there was not success on, and it was quickly fixed. I mean, I guess the thing I would say, Alex, is I don't think they would have bettered the situation in terms of that by holding on to Gabby at that point. I don't think that would have made it more stable. So I don't think they've made moves just because they're not stable. I disagree with that. Roster is a different conversation, and you're always going to have more turnover in MLS than in other leagues because of the salary cap situation. And you're especially going to have it where Atlanta had it after those first couple of years where you have all that extra allocation money to start the franchise and it goes away. And you're then, along with players you bring in who outperform their initial contracts, wanting more money, you have to have turnover. That's the way MLS is built, and there's no way to avoid that. I mean, you go back to the very beginning of the league. DC had that. DC at the very beginning won the first 2 titles, won 3 out of the first 4. And even after year 2, you had to start blowing that team up because they couldn't re-sign everybody and they couldn't keep everybody. You had cap issues. And it's happened to a lot of teams around the league in its history. There's no way to avoid that part. That's the challenge of MLS. So I know what you're saying. I don't think that's the situation here. The fan base part of it, I mean, from how the club is run, it doesn't affect it, and it can't affect it. If it does, then you're never going to be successful. If you're following the winds of the bird app and where it's flapping, you're not going to be successful. It's not how you run a club. But I don't think they're making changes just to make random changes. I think the Gabby one is the biggest one that was a, whoa, okay. But I think it was necessary. And the way it turned afterwards, I think, showed that it was the right move.
Follow up from Alex real quick before I go to Burn. He says he's not even judging the success. What he's saying is that if you need to ask for patience, then you can't ask for it over and over.
I don't think they have, honestly. I mean, when Gonzalo says it, it's different than when the club is saying it. When Gonzalo's saying like patience, he's talking about, he's not asking the fan base for patience, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he has, and I'm focusing more on talking about just the general, you have to be patient in building this team when they haven't had a lot of time to play together because of the different injuries and different things this season. So maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I don't know. Like, I don't think the club has just consistently been like patience. I mean, last year they were very narrowly missing out on a home playoff game after the start of the season, and they had a great finish to the season. Not a lot to feel horrible about. Is it where, you mean, you want to be higher than that? Of course, you want to be first every year. And if you have to ask for patience about, hey, we finished fifth here and we finished second in the East here, and we're asking for your patience that we'll get back to first, then I think maybe the expectations of this league and how hard it is to consistently be there need to be understood. But I don't know, Alex. I mean, I that's the way I feel about the patience thing. I think when Gonzalo says it, it's a little bit different conversation.
Burned off of that, he says that too many managers in too short a time span is the Atlanta United problem in a nutshell. Players acquired for one coach don't work for the next one, and know the playing idea and style is not the same under Tata/FDB/Heinze/Pineda.
The philosophy is roughly the same, but no, it's not the same, and that's typical. And you're bringing players in for philosophy. I don't think it's quite that rigid, Burned. But again, I don't think they should have kept Heinze longer than they did. That's the one that was the big one. The Frank de Boer one, he had success in 2019. The first 3 years of this franchise have been great. 2020, you lose Joseph, and then you have the COVID situation. I would love at some point, we probably never will know because there's been allusions to it. I would love to know what Frank was dealing with personally during that time, because there were allusions to him being back in the Netherlands early on in the pandemic and family stuff and all of that. If that was part of why the MLS's back tournament went very, very badly and you had players who weren't happy and all of that, then okay, you got to make that move. But when you make that move, then you bring in somebody that everybody worldwide thought would work. Renown, acclaim on that move, on bringing Gabriel Heinze. It didn't work. And he had to fix it. And he did. And now they have somebody that I think is a long-term fix. So then the flip side of what I think Alex and Burned are saying in different ways, and probably with different meanings, exactly, I'm lumping it together because welcome to the show. We're talking about a lot of different things. The flip side is then you have to let Gonzalo continue to build this team. And you have to continue to do that. I don't think there's any thought of anything other than that. But then from what Alex and Burned are saying, because I think the Gabriel Heinze one had to happen. I think the Frank de Boer one had to happen when it did. I don't think those were hasty. So if we're saying that you have to keep managers longer, then that should be the pushback on anybody who is starting a hashtag out. And yes, I've seen it because it's stupid. So that's the pushback to that. That's not me saying the pushback. I've already said that. I don't think de Boer and Heinze were let go too fast, would be the response to Alex and Burned here.
Katie Weaver asking a question. Big picture, is this roster built for MLS success? I think it is on paper, but past few years' performances have shown that adding a bevy of skill players doesn't equal success on the field.
No roster is built for success on paper. You never know until you get it together. And we're never going to know. Frankly, we're never going to know. Because you didn't just add a bevy of skill players. Osvaldo Alonso was a crucial part of the additions for this group. Crucial. Only got a few games with him. Only got a few. And I think you've seen since you lost him where the, if you want to go back to the grit word, go back to the game you lost him in and look at what's happened since, and that's where you are. And I don't think this is a weak team. But I think having somebody like Ozzy in those moments is critical. And we're seeing that since he was hurt. So, no, I mean, you added Almada. Okay, that's a piece that you want to add because of his talent. I don't think there's been any issues with that, even no matter what Matt Doyle says, because he's just like the number 10 shirt has an issue for some. I think the number 8 shirt has a big issue for Doyle, and that he doesn't want to let go of his early criticisms of Barco. And then he applied those to Almada, I think, incredibly unfairly. If you've watched these games that Atlanta hasn't gotten results in, you've seen Almada be very, very good. Like outstanding. So I don't think that's an issue. Araujo is not just a skill player to me. And I think you saw that in this game where the press is better. The defending high up the field in the other team's half is better when Araujo's on the field because he's got that mentality. Okay. And that was late last season, but it was really for this season. You got him, to fix last year at the end of the year, but it wasn't a short-term rental. It was a long-term thing. Campbell being in the team now, he's not a skill guy. I think you're never going to get the true answer to that, Katie, because we're not going to see what this team was built to be because of Alonso's injury, because he was brought in to be that difference, that veteran difference. And now that he's gone, then, can you go get another one in midseason, which isn't easy, but can you find it? Or can somebody else give you maybe not the experience and the number of games that Ozzy has played in his career and being around the block as long as he has, but can somebody give you the elements on the field that he can? And I do think Franco Ibarra could be that. And I don't know if he's a starter for this team on a regular basis, but I think he gives them a different mentality on the field. And I like it. And I think it might get him on the field maybe more than you would think based off skill level. Because I don't think he is as skilled on the ball as Hosechu, I'm comparing guys in his position. So I don't consider Almada in the same place. Ibarra is the least technical of the Hosechu, Sejdic, Heinemann grouping. Sosa's a little bit different. I don't know if I could play Ibarra as a 6 by himself, like we've seen with Sosa and like we saw with Alonso at times. I think he's not quite there yet, but he's starting to change my mind. But in terms of throwing himself into tackles, making the tackle at the right time, taking the yellow card at the right time when he has to, those kinds of things that Alonso does well, Ibarra does well. And maybe he's the answer to that on the field, at least. He's 21, so he's not Ozzy at 37. But can he give you some of that in the way the team plays? I think he could. And it would not shock me if he gets an extended run here to show that he can be that.
David on the hashtag OutCrowd, they're the ones who praise Pineda for the Alonso signing after 4 games and are criticizing the front office now for wasting a roster spot on an old, broken down Alonso. The narrative of many in the crowd is insane, praising anyone but the front office for any success and blaming them for everything else.
It's a mentality that's across all sports. It's not just Atlanta United. I think maybe the social media portion of the Atlanta United fan base is a little louder than some others, but it happens everywhere. I mean, you saw the reactions to the Falcons draft after the first round pick, and then I think Pro Football Focus or one of them graded the draft an A overall. And I mean, that's how this stuff goes. We yell and we scream on Bird app and on other apps, and that's how we get about sports. That's how a lot of people get about sports. I try not to do that in a game. Of course, we all do that because that's what we live for, right? We live for the 90 minutes. We live for the 4 quarters of football. We live for the 9 innings of baseball. We live for that stuff. And we get up and down in that, and we yell and we scream and we get mad about why somebody doesn't make this play or doesn't make that play or what happens in it. But when you're talking big picture, that mentality is not helpful. It doesn't make anything better. It's not the way that you operate outside of the field. It's not the way a club can. It's not the way you can do that. You can't get hung up on that stuff in short-term bursts when you're running a club. And when you're talking about a club, I don't think you can. I mean, you can, rephrase, you can. I don't think it's constructive, and I don't think it's realistic, and I don't think it actually accomplishes anything. I don't think it's the way you should think about things outside of games. And I try not to, because it just doesn't, it's not real. It's not how the club is run. And I'm not running the club, but I'm thinking when I'm like, man, I wish they'd make this move, or I wish they'd look for this, or I wish they'd go here. You got to separate yourself from the short-term reactionism stuff of, yes, the Alonso one, that was a good signing. And that was another one that everybody praised everywhere. And it was very impactful early on. You saw it. Look at the record with Ozzy and look at the record without him. Look at that. He didn't get injured because he's old and broken down. And I know that's not what David said, but anybody who thinks that, stop. Stop changing facts to create whatever narrative you want to run with to get attention on social media. He got hit from the outside of his knee towards ACL. Had nothing to do with his age. So, no, that was a good signing. And it was the right signing. And it was an impactful signing. Unfortunately, not going to get a chance to see the long-term impact of that signing because now he's out. Hopefully we'll see him again. It's going to be hard, but hopefully we see Ozzy again. I don't want his career to end like that. But right now, it hurts that he's not here.
Patrick Sullivan, I hope Pineda lit up the locker room after Saturday's game. The defensive lapses are killing this team and seem to be issues of a lack of individual effort. I felt like I was looking into, of course it slides, looking into the future. Should have been 3-1 if it wasn't for Gutman's save off of the goal line.
I thoroughly disagree, Patrick, that it's individual effort. I really buckle at people saying that players aren't giving effort. I think it's mentality in the issues that are the mistakes that are being made. I don't think it is somebody not trying. I don't think that is a fair criticism to say. I really don't. I never do. It's incredibly rare that you find somebody who just doesn't care and isn't playing. It's very, very rare you find that in any sport. It's more mentality and focus for me. And in the set piece situations, it's a lot of mentality and a lot of focus. Because you look at what Montreal did on the first one, they do the little hesitation, pump fake thing that a lot of teams will do. And a lot of teams will do it against zonal marking for sure. And you're trying to make people hesitate. You're trying to make people lose their focus. You act like you're going to deliver it here, then the other person delivers it, those kinds of things. And that little blink can be enough of a difference. The second goal, you don't get it clear. And it's not because any people aren't trying to. I mean, Franco Ibarra flies into a header to head it further away and then scrambles back to try to help force Miller to the end line to where Mulroney can keep him out, but he doesn't. And that's one player I know, but it wasn't that no one else tried. The effort thing doesn't work for me. But in terms of mistakes, a lot of times mistakes aren't made because of a lack of effort. A lot of times mistakes are made because of focus and mentality and the other things that are there. It's not effort. But yeah, I do think Gonzalo Pineda lit into the team afterwards. I don't know for sure, but I know his media availability was delayed. I know that he spoke later than usual, and I don't think it was because he was having a sandwich. So I take that for what it is. I wasn't there. We on the road, I know Shiva had asked this question about media availability, and it was posted afterwards. On the road, we don't have an engineer to help us deal with all of that because it's one more thing that's a little complicated. And typically on the road, we're not staying the night after the game. This time we were able to do a full-time report on radio. But you need really another person to be able to queue that up and bring that feed in and deal with all of that. So we don't typically do it. But in this case, I was trying, because I had it up, I was trying to hear some of it in our breaks so I could hear a little bit. I only heard the first question, but I think it was not quite our last segment. I think it was our next to last segment. And usually the media availability is very early in the full-time report and just a timeline thing after a game. So yeah, I don't think he was making a sandwich. I think he had a few things to say. and we'll see the response this week.
Dead again. We have a very good team. There are some minor issues. Sure, everyone wants to win, but it can't happen all the time. A few tweaks, starters getting back, team gelling will return results around. We've played better almost every game. The finishing will come. I think they're feeling the pressure and are trying way too hard to make that perfect shot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's so much they're feeling the pressure and trying to make the perfect shot, but I think they're feeling the pressure for sure. And I think you're tight when you're feeling that pressure, when you're playing well and not getting results. I think you get tight. And I think it affects you a little bit more defensively than it does in the offense. Because I'm not seeing it too much in the offense because they're taking all kinds of different shots. This game, actually, they took more long-range shots, which some like, some don't like. I don't know. It's just, but that was what this game had on offer. And they took a couple of free kicks that were really, really good from distance. They took some longer range shots. The Almada one, I thought that was curling in, and it was different than others. I think the tightness is really affecting them more on your set pieces and your defending, because right now that, hey, goals are at a premium a little bit. Can't make a mistake here. Can't make a mistake here. And when you play not to make a mistake, what do you usually do? You make a mistake. Yeah. That's how that goes.
Vader is in with a question about the back line.
Mm-hmm.
Has Miles been telling folks where to go on the back line? LGP said when Parkey left, he was the daddy, LOL. Who's on the back telling folks where to go on defense?
Well, it wasn't always Parkey doing it either. This is twofold, because it's Brad as well, losing him because he's a very vocal part of this. I don't know. I mean, I'm not close enough to tell you. I wish I could. I do see Miles more vocal and more demonstrative. I think Alan Franco is vocal and demonstrative as well. I don't think Bobby Shuttleworth is very vocal at this moment, which is understandable because he's been thrust into a new role. I hope that changes a little bit, because I like when the goalkeeper is. I think in general, and you can't compare Miles in 2019 when he's becoming a starter for the first time and LGP having to basically react differently because of the captain not being a regular and a not rookie, but a first year starter being the regular, that yes, his role is going to change. You can't compare Miles then to now, but Miles is not a, loud guy. He never has been. It's something he needs to work on. It's something that I think every player who has that, and we talked about this with Gutman earlier, every player who, has leadership possibilities or is not a great communicator and not vocal on the field, they have to improve on that. And I think Miles is no different. I don't know who is organizing in these situations at the moment because of your vocal leaders not being there. I think Alan does it to a degree. I hope Bobby is, and I'm just not seeing it, which it's very short. There's not a lot of experience there. There's not a lot of time there. So that could absolutely be happening, and I'm not seeing it or hearing it. Brad moved his arms around a lot. You could see it. If you were anywhere near the field, you could hear it. With Bobby, I'm not seeing as much of the demonstrations, So he might be vocal, but we're not seeing like the pointing and that. Alan does it. Miles does it some. I saw Campbell doing it as well in previous games. But who is the main organizer? That's something that you have to work through and figure out. And that's another element of these challenges that you've had. And again, please, it is not an excuse. It's real. When you lose leadership, it has an effect. When you lose time to build chemistry, it has an effect. It's not saying like, oh, well, it's okay not to be good because of this. That's an excuse. It's saying this is something you have to work through because it's happened and it's real. And if Brad Gazan's there, you're not having this conversation. If Ozzy Alonso's in the team, you're not having this conversation and organizing the midfield area and organizing when people step higher and those kinds of things. But they're not there. So you have to reassess and you have to regroup in how you do these things. It's a real thing. It's happening. It's something that we're seeing in live action. And I don't really know right now. We'll see if we can get a little clarification on that before next week. But I think it is a little bit of a work in progress. And I think it's something that you're seeing people step into those roles and they have to grab that role and grab it with both hands and be that person. And we'll see if that changes as we go forward.
Michael Valverde with a statistics question. He wants to know how many goals have been scored against Atlanta United off of free kicks versus the run of play.
How many goals have been scored off of free kicks versus the run of play?
Yes.
Let me see if I can get that real quick, actually, as we bring Jarrett back into the show. You just ignored his music, John. That was rude.
You just powered straight through it.
I powered straight through.
Like a gas-powered weed eater.
I was going to recognize Jarrett's presence after the question had been read because I'd already started the question.
Well, you started the question because you weren't listening to the music. But anyway, let me see if I can figure this out quickly. I don't want to take up too much time trying to do this research, but actually, I think I know where I can figure it out quickest. So let's go to FBref, which is a great source for all kinds of numbers. Numbers don't tell you everything. Don't think that they do, but they can help you with this kind of stuff, and they can give you a little bit of a guide. So first goal you gave up against Kansas City was off a set piece. Against Colorado, the goals you gave up, the first one to Rubio was a set piece. Or no, was it? No, it was a cross to the backside and then put in. I don't think a set piece started that play. And I think it changed enough that I would say it's not a set piece. Second goal wasn't a set piece. It was a turnover and a quick strike. Third goal, I think I've tried to block it out because you're playing with 10 at that point.
Because I thought that was when the game got stretched and they ended up working all that was in the run of play.
Yeah, it was right after the red card to Miles. I'm pretty sure that was run of play. So that's 1 set piece, 3 run of play. Charlotte goal is a set piece, so 2 set piece, 3 run of play. Montreal, I would actually consider the first goal. I mean, it's a different kind of set piece, so it's almost in its own category, but it's not run of play exactly, where you had the pass back to Hernandez and he doesn't blast it into the stands or commit the foul and they go down the other way and score. Second goal was run of play. Third goal was a penalty, which is a set piece. So we'll leave the first one out because it's just so unique. Second one, run of play. Third one, penalty. Are you keeping track, John?
3 set piece, 4 run of play, 1 special.
1 special. Charlotte, set piece, the Olympico. Miami, what were the 2 goals in Miami? The first one for Campana, cross from Yedlin.
Second one was the bad giveaway, and everyone scrambled back, and it was a tap in.
Second one's a giveaway. First one, run a play. So 2 more run of plays.
4 and 6 with a special.
And Montreal, both of them are set piece. Even the second one is still in a set piece situation. So 2 more set piece. It's about half and half, roughly.
6 set piece, 6 set piece, 6 run of play, and 1 special.
Yeah, the special one, you can put it in set piece if you want. It's not an attacking set piece, but it's 50-50 play.
It's all intents.
50-50, essentially. That's where you're at. It's not good. I mean, it's not good. I don't know where that ranks across the league, but it's good and bad, which is pretty much this game when you talk about anything with it. It's good in that you're not giving up a whole lot of open play goals. You're just not. It's not happening. But you're giving up goals that you shouldn't be giving up because you're giving them up on set pieces. So that's the bad part of it. It's frustrating, man. There's no way around it. I mean, I hope that it's coming through just because I'm not jumping up and down and stomping my feet and throwing things and saying hashtag out, everything out. Arr. That you don't think that I'm not frustrated? Yeah, I'm frustrated. I'm the one who's got to deal with everybody pushing back about it because for some reason it becomes my fault or everybody wants to yell at me on Twitter about it or yell at me in however form about it. And it sucks. I hate it. I do not enjoy it. And I'm very frustrated because I think they've deserved more out of these games. I don't think Gonzalo Pineda is at all incorrect in saying that they have deserved more with their quality of play in the Montreal game, in the Miami game, in the Cincinnati game, in the Charlotte game. That's 4 in a row. and that'll drive you insane. And they can't let it drive them insane. And I can't let it drive me insane. And fan base shouldn't let it drive them insane. But I don't know if there's any hope for that at this time, because everybody's fired up and it's understandable. But what I hope it turns into is on Saturday, it is loud and it is supportive for this team that is playing well. And I do not think they are not playing hard. That's why I push back on this really strong, because I don't want people to walk into that building on Saturday and feel like, oh, well, they're not playing very hard, so I'm not going to support very hard. I hope that that's not the mentality. These guys are not just going through the motions at all. And I hope what it turns into is more support to get through a time where you're out playing teams and you're not getting results. I hope that there's more support for the team in that, because they need it. And I hope that they don't have to create it all amongst themselves and from the bench and from the locker room and for one another. I hope that they get it in the building. They need it. They need it in a big way, because that stuff can make a difference. When you have back-to-back on the road where you're the better team and you get nothing out of it, man, it can break some teams. I hope the fan base in the building on Saturday doesn't let that happen. I hope that they support these guys in a big way.
Time for another Thinking Caps question.
Oh, boy.
Floor. From Wagner. He's asking, which team in Major League Soccer do you consider to be consistently good at defending set pieces?
Man, I mean, I'd have to dig a little bit deeper into it. I mean, it was a talking point yesterday that Nashville, for what you would think is good on set pieces, is not. They weren't last year either. They have struggled on defending set pieces for some reason, and they don't have some of the, I think, physical issues that Atlanta United would be. They've got bigger guys. They should be good in those situations. Probably the teams that are best in dealing with set pieces are the teams that focus the least on the ball. Because, I mean, it's a time thing when you're spending time in training. Like if you're Philadelphia, if you're the Red Bulls, and you're not building up patterns of attack, and you're not trying to build chemistry on the ball, and you're not focusing on those things, it's literally like, we don't really care. Just play it long and we'll press and we'll win there. And then you can focus on the ball on that side of things. But then you have more time to work with. I mean, you're focusing on the press. Don't get me wrong. It's not like you don't focus on that. But then you have more things to work with, because you've got to find your edge. And if your edge is not going to be on the ball and building up the play, you're probably going to find it in set pieces. So my gut feeling as an answer to that would be that Philly and Red Bulls are two teams that are probably among the best in defending set pieces, because I think they probably spend more time on both attacking and defending. I think they spend more time on set pieces in general than most teams that focus more on the run of play and on the ball.
Not Your Aunt Martha is in this morning, and she goes, I just hope we start finishing. I miss thinking, here we go, every time we get a nice offensive breakaway. Recently, I've waited for the cross and maybe this time in my head. I loved when we felt dangerous. It was really fun to watch, and dangerous doesn't equal wins. I felt pretty excited even when we lost those matches, because it was fun to watch.
I think crossing has become a thing for a lot of folks here, and I'm not feeling it as much right now. Like, maybe the numbers are wrong. This game in Montreal, I had multiple people talk about just putting in crosses and putting in too many crosses. They only put in 10. They put in 26 in Miami. They put in 25 against Cincinnati. They only put in 10 in Montreal. And I think Martha might be talking more longer term, but Montreal was not a game where they just put in a bunch of crosses. They actually created a lot from the middle and the run of play and passing. And yes, some from longer range. Those two games, they put in more crosses. Outside of that, they haven't put in more than 15 crosses in a game all year. The Cincinnati game and the Miami ones they did. Cincinnati and Miami, I get it, because they sat back deeper. Those were two teams that played from a deeper position, and they're taking away some of the other things. But other games, I mean, in Charlotte, they only had 5 crosses. I think in that game, Am I wrong in saying that I think the criticism there from some, or at least it was a topic at some point in the show, was they're not crossing enough?
Yes.
I think that was after the Charlotte game, which they only had 5. So, I mean, okay. 15 in DC, 10 in Montreal, 14 in the home game with Charlotte, 7 in Colorado, and 11 against Sporting Kansas City. It was 25 and 26 in the last 2. Let me look at just comparing across the board where that kind of ranks them. It's not something I track on a regular basis in terms of just like where you fit and crossing. Let's see. So crosses, your number 1 team in crosses in the league is 18.9. Atlanta, and because of those 2 more recent games, is 5th in the league with 13.7. So they've been below that in the majority of their games, but they had 2 that were double that have skewed it a little bit. So I do want to see that from a longer term perspective. Atlanta does lead the league in corners, which is maybe a little piece of that with 7. Because I do believe they might get lumped into the crossing numbers from a corner. I have to double check that. But they do lead the league in corners, if that matters. This game, I didn't think the crossing was an issue. But yeah, when you have to resort to just putting in crosses, which at the very end you did here, and that's probably where a bulk of those crosses came from. And in those other 2 games where teams are sitting back with a line of 5 and they're taking away some of those things, got to find a different way. And I think some of it is the crossing that's more of a pass to the top of the 18. I do want to see more of that. I generally want to see more of that from any team that puts in crosses at all. That's the type of cross that I like more. I think it's more dangerous. I think it suits this team.
Alex says crossing's only bad when you don't score. Also, shooting too much is only bad when you don't score. Possession is bad when you don't score. 1 or 2 mental mistakes defending is only bad when you don't score.
All of those things. I don't know what the number is after this one, but coming into the game in Montreal, and I can grab my notebook here really quick. And I think one of the elements of my frustration in the conversation around it has been like, they've lost their identity because they've lost their identity because they're not scoring goals. That's not true. They're attacking, and they're attacking well, and they're attacking in quantity. Because in Montreal, going into that game, they were in the last 4 games 2nd in shots. And I don't think they were just blowing a lot of shots. They were 2nd in shots in the last 4 games across the league. And they were 24th in goals because they had 2 coming into that game. I don't know where it will be out of this. XG, if you want to get into XG, they were 4th in the league in XG with 7.91 in the 4 games preceding Montreal, and they had 2 goals to show for it. They're 3rd in chances created. They're 4th in shots on target. They're absolutely attacking. They're just not scoring. And when you're doing that, then these mistakes get magnified the other way. And that's how any team in the situation would be.
Let's see. Question from Michael Valverde about the match itself. Mm-hmm. He was wondering, he said that Jordy Mihailovic was very quiet. Why was that?
I thought Atlanta did a good job defending him. He did have some moments as the game opened up for them. He had a couple of chances created. He only had 30 passes. He didn't see the ball a whole lot. He did have 5 tackles won, so he put in work off the ball, and that's a credit to Georgi Mihailovic, who should be in the national team, and he's always dangerous when he does get on the ball. But, yeah, I think that was one of the concerns with the Ibarra-Hosechu midfield was they'd lose Mihailovic, he'd find space, and he could hurt you on the break, and he didn't. He just really didn't. I thought he got frustrated because he wasn't getting much of the ball, and he started fouling a good bit and started getting angry and should have got a yellow card for delaying a restart. That Alan Franco got a yellow card like right after for delaying a restart. That's kind of like, okay, what are we doing here? But no, he wasn't in dangerous positions very much. And that's a credit to Atlanta. I thought they, again, run a play. I thought they defended really well in this game.
Katie Weaver on Atlanta, she says the early goal meant Montreal could sit back. Atlanta hasn't yet shown they can be dangerous when teams clog the middle and sit back. The fast-breaking glory of 2017-2018 is gone because this is a parity league and teams aren't dumb and won't let Atlanta play that way.
Yeah, there's no fast break. And I mean, Atlanta has still found opportunities to fast break, and it's something that Opta tracks fast breaks, and Atlanta's been, in the top 10 in that this season. So when they get it, they take it. They just haven't got that opportunity very much. And when you concede early, I don't think, and as Jarrett said earlier, I'm with you on this, Jarrett. I think it's not that Montreal got the goal and then went into a bunker. It's that Atlanta forced them there because they pressed high, and Breza was uncomfortable with the ball at his feet. I thought Miller was uncomfortable with the ball at his feet, and Atlanta kept forcing the ball to those two, so they had to give it away real quick. And when you're in that boat, when you have a lead, it's really comfortable to say, hey, let's ride this out. Let's be a little safer right now.
Yeah, it's easier to absorb, to absorb that pressure and say, hey, we can sit, and that team is going to put us under pressure. Well, we don't have to come out of the shell as much, and if we do turn it over, we're in a better spot. We have more bodies back if we do turn it over, which is something that was happening because they couldn't keep the ball from the life of them at times. But you don't have to stretch your field trying to get forward, trying to find something in those situations because you've already got a lead. The onus is on Atlanta to carry it.
Will says the referee had very little consistency, and that was annoying. Not saying it was a reason for the loss, but it was definitely an ingredient in frustration.
It was annoying. It added a frustration, I think, for both teams. It didn't affect anything in it. I didn't think it was a foul that led to the free kick that Montreal scored from, but those things happen. It didn't affect anything. I didn't think Chilowitz was great. We haven't talked about it. I think everybody did in the lead up to this game that Pro did not include the Brooks Lennon penalty situation in their video of breaking down from the previous week.
But they had a fun, friendly. They had a silly breakdown of a fun, friendly pickup game in Portland.
They did have that. They also did not have the audio on the clip that was attached to the definitive angle write-up, which is a really good write-up, and you should read it. And they don't publicize it a whole lot. It doesn't get talked about very much. And they went into detail, and they said that, look, it's clear from this that the VAR thought there was a clear and obvious error. We agree with the VAR, and Marufo disagreed. Now, I don't know, because people always ask about punishment. I don't know if this was strictly punishment, but Jair Marufo did not referee in MLS this weekend. He was a VAR in New York City. I don't know if that was already on the books. I don't know if that was changed. I'm not sure. I couldn't answer that question. But it's another oopsie that is just something that gets in your head and frustrates you. It is what it is. You got to deal with it. But there might be another one coming from Pro because you had another situation with a play sent down from the VAR, and the referee looked at it. In this case, and it could be the case in the Marufo one too, that it's not purely on the referee, because I don't think they got Penso the right angles of the handball from Corey Burke. I only definitively thought it was a handball and a penalty in the later replays that ESPN showed. I don't know. I wasn't 100% that it was when Penso was looking at it. Maybe that's more on the VAR/AVAR or the whoever's working the machines to get that down to the referee. The Marufo one, I think he missed. I can't bail him out with that, because I think every angle you look at, and they do show the video that is being sent to Marufo in the Pro website in the definitive angle article. They show the video that's being sent. They don't have the audio, which I think that's atrocious, to be honest. And if you want to point to a technical failure, well, they probably should, because if you're dropping the audio where Marufo is disagreeing with what the VAR is saying, I got a big problem with doing that. That's a bad look. Jair Marufo doesn't need to be protected. He's one of the best referees in this league. And yes, he'll make mistakes, because every referee does. But I need to know why he didn't see that. This one, I definitely need to know what Penso saw, because the replays they showed at the time on TV, which is usually what he's seeing, but maybe not 100%. I wasn't 100% sure. I thought it caught him up on the bicep around the shirt sleeve, which is actually okay now. It wasn't until they showed it later where you see the arm out, and I think it actually catches below the elbow. But it should have been a penalty for Nashville. And now you have another situation where VAR should have fixed that, and they didn't. Well, VAR did. VAR sent it down, and it wasn't fixed, is maybe the best way to put it.
Yeah, because I think
VAR did their job. They did what is within their powers, and within their powers is to say, hey, I want you to take a look at this.
The question in this one is, did they give him the right angle to make the call? Because I'm not 100% sure they did in this one. The Marufo one, no, he had enough to make the right call.
So then Uncle's asking, does Pro or MLS expect fans to just accept crap officiating? Why are they so opposed to accountability?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think it's overprotection, honestly. I don't think it's anything to do with accepting crap officiating, because, I mean, we talk about this in every league. Like, then there's no league that has great officiating because it comes up in every league in the world. But it would help a lot in the messaging. It's so frustrating to have to go find this in an article that is not buried on the website, but not the front of mind. It's not the video segment, which gets more, I would assume, hits than the article does. It's very frustrating to have this drop at like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday.
News dump, exactly.
And have to try to find it. And then, oh, yeah, they should have had a penalty. And Pro agrees. After some people saying that, no, it shouldn't have been a penalty. No, that's crazy. What are you talking about? He's looking for it. And then people starting a narrative that Brooks Lennon is a diver, which is what people are going to remember out of this, rather than, hey, he actually was fouled and should have had a penalty according to the Professional Referees Organization. That's why you need the accountability. And that's why the referees have to be willing to take it. And Pro has to do it, because you're never going to have perfect refereeing. I think every game, somebody's going to feel like it was mediocre refereeing. Every league has referees that people don't like. And people will tell you that the referees suck in every sport, in every league, everywhere. But the way you can start to better the narrative is say, hey, we're working with our referees to be the best in the world. He made a mistake. He's a great referee. He's not working this weekend because of it. He's on VAR duty because of it. Because obviously he didn't believe his VAR. Maybe he should practice more as a VAR. Whatever you want to say. And Jair Marufo is not the one that you have to worry about affecting his future with it. Like, if it's a young referee, again, I get it. I don't think you should, but I would understand it a lot more. If it's a young referee who makes this mistake and you don't want to bury the young referee, fine. That referee can probably develop into a better ref. But Jair Marufo, that's where you can make a point. That's where you can say, like, one of our best made a mistake. We're going to make sure this doesn't happen again because of X, Y, and Z. And Jair Marufo's not working this weekend because of the big mistake that affected a potential game result changing moment. Marufo can take that. And they got to do better with that. They got to continue to develop better referees. There's a big picture conversation with refereeing in this league, in this country. 100% there is. But in this situation, you're going to get more goodwill, and you're going to make fans feel better about the refereeing product in this league if you come out publicly and say, we had the situation, it would have given a team a penalty late in the match. It is a potential match result changing situation, and the referee got it wrong. And the referee's not working this weekend because of that, because we think he got it wrong. Nothing wrong with that. It's not going to ruin Jair Marufo's career. But by quietly having him on VAR, and by quietly dumping this, you're not doing anything to change the opinion. And this is my anger about it. What is going to be remembered about this is Marufo giving a quote, and I don't know how Joe Patrick got the quote. I don't know if it was from the pool report or what, but he gives a quote where he says Lennon is leaning forward and he's looking for the contact, anticipating the contact. He's implying that Lennon went down easily. And then you get league personalities saying that Brooks Lennon goes down easy, and now you've changed a reputation about a player who should have earned a penalty. That's the BS. And that's what's going to be remembered about this more than Jair Marufo didn't work this weekend, and he was on VAR at Yankee Stadium, and he got it wrong. Most people probably aren't going to know that he got it wrong. That's what's wrong. Because now you've created another narrative, just like you created through the disco last year about Ezequiel Barco diving all the time. And did he get all the calls that he deserved? Probably not, because people start refereeing the player, not refereeing the game. It's like, oh, he's got a reputation. Not giving him that. Now you started to create a reputation up Brooks Lennon, which is 100% thoroughly undeserved from this situation. But that's what people are going to remember from this. Guarantee you're going to see that in conversation around this league, whether it's fans, whether it's league media. That's what you're going to see more than Jair Marufo blew a call. And that is wrong. And they're not going to fix it.
Bam says that Pro needs to release the ref and VAR audio straight after the game for people to watch.
Yeah.
If they release the game with they release the game with ref audio only after the game, would you watch it?
Yes, because I'd want to know why you got there. Because
that's what I was waiting for all week. Because I wanted to hear what Marufo had to say about it. Like,
yep.
I'm not always going to agree with him.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, I'm not always going to agree with him. But I at least want to hear what he had to say.
I want to know why referees make the decisions that they do, because it makes me a better broadcaster when I know that. I do not come into a game with the mentality that referee X is going to be bad. I want to know why they think the way that they do, because then when I see them again, I'm like, okay, I know from fouls they call during games. I know from how many cards they give. I kind of have a sense of reputation. I know anecdotally, but when you hear something like that, okay, and at least now we do have a quote in this from Marufo. It's going to be that, hey, he's very harsh on when he thinks people are looking for a call in the 18. Okay, we know that. But I want to know more in these situations, because I do think referees get more right than wrong. 100% that I do. And I think refereeing is one of the hardest jobs. Refereeing soccer is one of the hardest jobs in sports, because there is so much subjectivity in it. And you've got to judge intent. You've got to judge the threat. You've got to judge the recklessness. You've got to judge, the force. There's so much you've got to judge in making these decisions and making these calls that it's not black and white. It's incredibly difficult. I want the referees to be able to explain themselves more thoroughly, because I'm sure there's calls that I'm seeing live from further away than the referee is that I've completely got it wrong. I know there is. And I'm okay with that. I'd like to hear what I missed. I'd like to know what I got wrong. I'd like to know what the referee saw in these situations, rather than have to guess. And if you go back and look at the one with Marufo, by the way, and you look at where he was on the field when the foul happened to Lennon, he does not have a good view of it. And it's not his fault, because, it's happening towards the end line. He's not going to be there. But he doesn't have a good view of it. So that's what, again, guessing, because we don't hear what he says. That's what's frustrating, is that the VAR has a better view, and the VAR sends it down for him to look at, and I think showed him enough to see that it's a foul. You can see that Allen comes across and catches him on the shin below the knee, and it goes down to his foot, and Lennon goes down. And you can see the way Lennon goes down is because of the contact. And it's not given. So, that's one where I think Marufo really got it wrong and probably should have leaned on his VAR more, because I don't think he had a good view. It's different when you have a good view and you disagree with what's being sent down in a judgment call. In this one, I don't think he could have had a great view, and he needed to listen to his VAR, and he didn't, and he got it wrong. But Brooks Lennon's a diver, and he's got a reputation for it now because of this, which is garbage.
ATLUTD dog. I'll keep saying this. With the money in pro games, part-time refs has to be changed. You need to make them full-time employees so it becomes a career path and they're focusing on their job, not their 9 to 5, than being weekend warriors.
There are a lot of them that are full-time pro. That it's not all of them as part-time refs. That's not happening. But yeah, I'd like to see more. And I'd like to see more young refs, especially, who have the potential to be great refs, brought into that program rather than the older refs. And it's nothing against the older refs, but this is how you build the process and change it, and you add more, is instead of giving somebody a reward for being good over a period of time when they're only going to work for a few more years at the top level, I want you to give it to the 25-year-old who has the potential to be reffing a World Cup final. I want you to bring them on full time and work with them in games and outside of games to make them that referee who gets World Cup final appointments. That's what we need. And I hope that they do more of it. and they need to commit the resources to it. And if that means MLS needs to cut more money to it, and USL as well, because it's going to benefit them, and NWSL and all of it, then yeah, it's pro referees. It's all of it. It's USL, it's NWSL, it's NISA, it's MLS, and USL Super League when it starts, the second division women's pro league. All of them have to commit to developing better referees for all of them. And the process starts with guys who start in USL Super League, second division for women when it starts, and NISA and USL League One. It starts with, referees getting those appointments and developing further up the chain.
Alex Pacine is not a black helicopter guy, but he wonders if the same review makes it into the video with a different set of teams.
I would tend to think yes, and I'm sorry, but I do. Because this ain't the first time. I think in this case, maybe some of it is down to who Jair Marufo is and his clout and his standing, which, again, should give you even more reason to point out that he made a mistake. But maybe they didn't want to do that to one of their top guys. That's the wrong approach. I'm salty about it because, and maybe it is purely coincidence, but since 2020, I feel like Atlanta United has been on the wrong end of way too many of these oopsies. And I almost wonder if it's a fatigue thing that they just don't want to say it again to feed a narrative that is actually true in this case. Because there's situations that they have publicly rebuked referees for mistakes. Jake Mulroney, red card in Nashville. There are situations where they've buried it like this. And there are situations where they haven't even made it public and they have apologized for mistakes. And we know that's happened with other teams too. That's not purely an Atlanta United thing, but there's been enough of all of those that, man, that's a lot. That's a problem.
Ricky Ricardo says, after seeing the USFL and their in-game review that can be watched and heard, I want that for MLS and all sports.
It's not an MLS reason that they're not doing that. It's a FIFA reason. Because remember, they did it like one game in the MLS's back tournament where you had the live audio. I think they got some kind of approval to trial it there, and then they didn't do it again. MLS and other leagues need to lobby FIFA, IFAB, whatever refereeing organizations there are to allow for that. And I'd be fine with it. I do get the concerns about doing it live and then potentially undermining referees and the respect they have on the field from teams, because it's going to be really fast if referee is explaining something and he explains it wrong, gets it wrong. It's going to be really fast for that to get down to the coach and to hear about it, and then they're going to say something about it to the referee, and then that's probably going to tick everybody off. I get that. I at least need it the day of, in my opinion. I think what was said earlier about releasing these incidents that same day after the game, I think that is a very acceptable compromise in this, and it should be the standard worldwide.
Resubmissions of questions, and there was a resubmission and a couple of other thoughts.
Cool.
Vader, about the game itself, what would you have done differently substitution-wise that
Nothing.
Gonzalo Pineda?
Nothing. And I said it in the broadcast. They were outplaying Montreal. The only subs you needed were because people had to come out. I didn't see anything before the equalizer for Moreno. I didn't see anything at halftime you needed to change. I didn't see anything you needed to change after the goal was given up. He brought on Conway. I think that made sense at that point. Mulroney for Araujo was, I think, because Araujo couldn't go past the 80th minute. He couldn't go anymore, and he wasn't great on the day. There's nothing else I would have made. Your midfield was good. You didn't need to bring on Heinemann or Sadic or anybody else just to bring them on. I think your subs were dead on. Just because you don't make a lot of subs, that's not a bad thing. I think the way Atlanta played in this game, they had the control. They were outplaying Montreal. They were dominating the game. It's not just me saying that. A lot of Montreal people said that. They didn't need to change anything just to change it, because then you lose some of that control. I think it was the right call.
Shiva's asking if you think Atlanta will do anything before the window closes.
I kind of think they will, but I have no idea what it is. I don't know if it's Hoppy. I don't know if it's something else. But yeah, I think if the right deal opens up for them, they absolutely will. Because and the caveat to that is I don't know the cap situation. Nobody does. I'm assuming that the Rocco move is very cap friendly and you're good, and you would like to not use the season-ending injury relief section of the rules, which you can only do for one player. You can put guys on the season-ending injury list, and if I'm wrong in this, I'll put my hand up when somebody says it, but it's not clear because welcome to MLS rules. My understanding is you can put guys on the season-ending injury list. You get the roster space relief for that. You don't get cap relief, but for one. And there are the parameters of what that can be. So you do have a little bit of that to wiggle room with. And I don't think the Rocco one is going to take that necessarily here because that's a much easier deal. I think he's going to be a supplemental guy. So I think in essence, he's replacing Castanera. But I don't know what's going to materialize. You do have, I think, if the rules are the way we're reading them, I think you have up to $250,000 that you get in relief here. But you got to have some cap space to bring somebody in, and we don't know how much they have. So that would be the only caveat to it. But yes, I think if the right move materializes, and whether it's an attacker or it's a veteran to come in and give you what Alonso's given you, if you like what you can get before Wednesday, I think you go and get it.
And Bart says, I'm going to break up the negativity for a hot second and applaud Angel City for bringing 22,000 to their season opener. Portland and Washington also drew more than 10,000 fans.
Yeah, those are good. I think Orlando, I'll be the negative one here. I think Orlando only drew like 3 and some change. There was another like 6. So you need it across the board. What I like about Angel City, it's not just the one day thing. It's that they've sold over 15,000 season tickets. That's the amazing thing. That's the great story. And props to them. Now, as we always talk about in these situations, you got to keep them. You gotta keep people there. You got to put a good product on the field. You got to continue to do that, and we'll see if the new teams in NWSL can, and we will have to look at the teams that are not drawing huge as to why they're not drawing huge and what they can do to fix it. Also, hopefully, the Clarkson situation in Houston is the last of that. I think you've gotten rid of every coach who was there at the start of the 2021 season now.
Yeah.
Which is wild. And a lot of them in these kinds of situations. Hopefully that's the last of it. And you can just move forward and build. But Angel City great start, but even better season ticket numbers. That's my success story of the weekend is that announcement.
Turner is hoping that Darren is keeping a large file of all of these oopsies.
Oh, I'm sure he is. I mean, you have
just listen to 92.9 this week. He'll probably bring it up. He's never been shy about it.
I hate that it is a point that we have to continue to bring up because you don't like to just complain about referees all the time, but there's been a lot of very high profile mistakes made that have very possibly affected results and very possibly affected playoff position. And Atlanta's not the only team who's had these. It's not that everybody else gets it right and Atlanta's the only team they get it wrong against. That's not true. But I do think there's been more against Atlanta than most, and maybe more than anybody else, but more than most for sure. And it stinks. And it's just, there's got to be a better way if you're pro. And I really come back to the idea that you have to make it public as to what happened with the audio. And you have to make it public that Marufo was taken off of a game this week. If that's the case, I don't 100% know that, but I don't think Jair Marufo works VAR all that often. Might be wrong. You have to make it public if he is taken off of an assignment because of this. And you got to announce it before Saturday morning.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no excuse for it going that long. There's absolutely no excuse for it going that long. I'm checking really quick to see if they did change it with Marufo, if I can find that he was assigned.
because that was straight news dump material.
April 28th, and again, like they probably knew everything before Saturday, but he was listed as the VAR, and it is the 12th time in his MLS career that Jair Marufo was a VAR. So not common by any stretch. Guido Gonzalez Jr. was the referee there. Could they have flipped that? Yeah. Guido's worked as a VAR a good bit, more than Marufo. Could they have flipped that after they made their decision at the pro offices? Absolutely, they could have before it became public. But we'll never know because they didn't say it that way. But 12 games as a VAR in his career, Jair Marufo, I got some questions about why he's on a VAR this time around rather than being in the middle.
Christopher Abel asks, why are none of these oopsies ever in favor of Atlanta? Seems like whenever a ref makes a bad call, it always goes against Atlanta and never in favor.
I'm sure there's some. I'm sure there's a lot of fans and teams around the league that would point them out. It does feel like there's far more against. But I don't think it's like a vendetta. I don't think it's anything intentional. I don't think it is. But where I have a problem is now that Lennon's going to be branded as a diver, and before that Barco was branded as a diver, it leads to things about how games get called down the road. And that is not right. And it happened in this one because of a bad call that Pro said was wrong. Because I can almost guarantee you, I'm going to say almost because I've been surprised before. I can almost guarantee you that on the, is it sponsored by Pringles or Cheez-It these days? The video.
It's still Cheez-It.
Is it Cheez-It? I can guarantee you on there is not going to be we had it wrong about Jair Marufo last week. Actually, it should have been a penalty. And no, Brooks Lennon does not have a reputation for going down easily.
Yeah.
I can guarantee, I can almost guarantee you that will not be mentioned. And there will be more people who see that, thanks to Cheez-It. There will be more people who hear these things, more people that saw Marufo's quote than the actual, we got it wrong and should have been a penalty. And that's not cool. That is not cool at all. And it's a big, big problem.
Then his follow-up is, can you show me any time when Pro has publicly acknowledged an error that benefited Atlanta?
I can't think of one.
I'm sure it's happened, but it doesn't
know it's
stick
happened
in
sometime.
I think it's one of those things. It's surely happened, but it's the mistakes that hurt you that stick in your craw. The ones that benefit you often, they kind of fly out of your head after a certain amount of time. But the ones that hurt you are the ones that'll stick in your head. I can go back to 2019. I think there were like 2 weeks in a row in 2019 when Atlanta was cruising, where I think it was PT Martinez was drawing penalties in the box. It was like 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks in a row.
Weeks.
Yeah, where he got fouled in the box, brought down. They didn't give it. VAR didn't recommend to look, and then Pro had to come back afterward and say, yeah, those should have been penalties. And thankfully, neither one of those impacted the game.
They were in wins. It was NYC
Atlanta was doing fine.
Portland. And the NYC one happened, and then Pitti was fouled in the box against Portland, and there were league personalities who said that he was diving and that it was horrible, and et cetera, et cetera. And then they were proven incorrect when Pro came out after that and said that no, Pitti should have gotten a penalty in Portland. And that led to a very funny incident, which I will leave out of it. But it's just, it got to stop. We got to stop with this. We got to get right. And they gotta be public in all of these, like, we got this wrong and this ref's not going to work here. There's no reason why they can't be. And you can do all the things behind the scenes for the referee. If it's a young referee makes a mistake and is going to miss a game for it, you can do all the things and follow up and mentorship and all that to make sure that it doesn't affect them mentally and doesn't affect their development. But you have to show the fan base, and not just the Atlanta fan base, the MLS fan base. You have to show them that you're taking it seriously, that when these mistakes happen, referees are having some kind of repercussion from it. I don't need them fined. Just say they're not working in their capacity the next week. You don't have to suspend them for a month unless it becomes a long-term thing. And when you get to that point, they probably shouldn't be getting the assignments in the first place, and somebody else should. but they're missing a game. Fine. That's easy. And it happens in other leagues in the world. I know Italy announces it publicly, and I don't think you have quite as many oopsies. Okay, cool. Do it. Like, if Marifo was on VAR because of this mistake, that has to be public knowledge. And considering he'd only worked 11 times as a VAR before, I can assume, but I don't know. That should be public knowledge.
All right, Jarrett, let me start this one with you. The Colonel wants to know thoughts on the dogfight in the East. Top 3, maybe 4, starting to create separation.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, separation's a fluid term here, yeah, because this was part of the conversation that and I realize we live in a world apparently where it's binary. It's either one or the other. You're either super positive or super negative. But yeah, Atlanta's 4 points out of fourth place. They're also 2 points off the bottom of the table because the East is just a mangled mess of chaos right now. Philadelphia is doing work, and Philadelphia might have gotten an extra point that they didn't necessarily get if
should have been
get
a penalty
things right.
least.
Yeah, should have been. Well, and this is the same thing last week with Miami. I don't want it to ever sound like that's exactly what cost you the game. No, it cost you an opportunity to change the game.
Yeah. 100%.
You're not necessarily costing someone the game. You're costing them the opportunity to change the game in those situations. But you still have to convert the penalty. And I'll tell you what, that penalty that Nashville did score, I don't know if you saw social media as it was happening, but the first thing on everybody's mentions was, hey, can Nashville actually get a penalty past Andre Blake, unlike last year in the playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a popular talking point, because this is the worst PK performance I've ever seen by a team. But you got it done. Randall Leal put it in the goal because Hani Mukhtar wasn't taking that PK because, again, and this applies to Joseph, this applies to Kamara last year, this applies to Vela. PKs are hard. They're not a walk in the park mentally. It takes the right kind of person to do it.
About 78% completion rate.
Remember, Josie Altidore wasn't never taking PKs for a reason, y'all. As far as the East goes, man, it's a dogfight. Philadelphia is Philadelphia. They are a thief of joy. Sorry, Rich. Love you, buddy. Your team is a thief of joy.
He didn't hear you.
That's okay. It felt, man, yesterday felt like peak Philadelphia too, because Andre Blake stood on his head. Nashville could have had 3 goals in the first half. He stood on his head, and then they get a goal in the second half, and all I could think is like, yeah, man, Philadelphia is just going to come in and kick over your lunch pail and take your girl and go home.
Philly had 40% of the ball. I'm sure that felt weird.
I'm sure it did. And Nashville leaned on them a lot.
Yep.
New York is still the weirdest team in the league because they only win their road games. Actually, I was talking to Dennis Fierstein the other day about it, and this is something we've talked about in the past, Jason. New York is about to deal with a weird situation where teams are coming into Red Bull Arena and they're placing that low block out there and daring Red Bulls to break it down.
Yep.
And we're going to have people in Red Bull land are going to have the same conversation you did in Atlanta in 2018 and 2019 of when people come to your house, they're putting up a bunker and they're putting up the sandbags and daring you to break it down. Now, granted, New York is still a pressing team. They're a little bit better with the ball than they've been in years past. It's not a total change. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
Red Bulls,
they're a little bit better with the ball. They're not as much.
Well, you got to say where they're better with the ball. They're better with the ball in the final third. They're not better with the ball and building up the play. Although they beat Chicago at Soldier Field with 56% of the ball. That's wild because they hadn't won a game with more than 40% of possession this season. I think that's a little more on Chicago.
Go look at the timeline of that game. Look, Chicago only had 9 players for the last. They had 10 players for the 80th minute.
And probably 10 minutes with stoppage.
Yeah, with stoppage time, they played 10 minutes plus with a 2-man advantage. Even before that, Red Bulls was playing them straight up. I mean, possession-wise, it wasn't like that 10 minutes flipped everything on its head because Chicago was pushing hard for that second goal at the very end.
Red Bulls got the winner against 9. It was a penalty that was awarded via VAR.
Yes.
Must be nice. Just saying.
Nashville feels the same way.
Yeah.
Orlando City's weird. I don't know. I can't ever figure out Orlando's. Yes. I can't figure out Orlando City. Charlotte goes in there and and I think I saw a couple people talking to was it top 90, top end 90.
Yeah.
Having conversations with them about it's this thing where, yeah, man, Charlotte's had some games where, it's had some really fun home games that and then the really good game they played well against Colorado last week in that draw. They're going to feel like they should have won. Colorado's going to feel like they should have won. Both of them threw away opportunities. But man, winning on the road's tough. Winning on the road when your expansion team is really tough. And going to Orlando and doing anything is weird because as much as we talked about like this week, people were talking about Nashville is the rise of soccer in the South. Man, look, I know we joke about Orlando not being the South. They still put together a hell of an atmosphere down there, and they were the first ones down south of the Mason-Dixon in that modern sense. If we're gonna, not count the Tampa Bay Mutiny in what they used to be, or the old Miami teams. Montreal's just getting it done. New York City
Look,
is
it's pretty
finding
easy.
themselves. Yeah,
when you want to get down to it, the separation that is happening, and it's not much. I mean, even top to bottom, it's 9 points. From Philadelphia to DC, it's 9 points from 1 to 14. So there's not much separation. But the 4 teams at the top that are on 18, 17, 17, and 14, they are the 4 best teams away from home. And Red Bulls have won all 5 away from home.
The Red Bulls are a damn enigma because they're 0-2-2 at home.
That's weird. That's not sustainable either way.
No, it's not.
Orlando hasn't lost on the road. They got 2 draws. Montreal is 500 on the road. They're 2-2-2, and Philadelphia is 2-1-1 on the road. But that's your front 4
on the road too. So
exactly. Philadelphia and Red Bulls are built to play in whatever you put them in because that's the way they play, which has limitations. It's not like, oh, that's how you do it. That always wins. No, you see those teams lose, and you see teams that play like that lose. They're very one direction in the way that they play. But the separation from the front 4, which is very minor, is because those are your 4 best teams on the road.
It's 5 points from Montreal to DC United at the bottom of the table.
Yeah, I mean it's 9 points from 1 to 14. Like that. Yeah. That's all you need to say. Like it's a crazy conference, and it's going to be crazy for a while. Like there will be more separation over time in different sections of it, but it's tighter through 8, 9, 10 games than I would have imagined that it would be. I thought there would be more clear separation from a couple groups, and maybe it happens, but it's not happening yet.
Piece of news before we head into more questions. Charlotte has signed Colombian forward Kerwin Vargas from Portugal's CD Firenze, according to a source, according to Alex Andrzejewicz. Vargas is Charlotte's second U22 initiative. Player contract will run through 24. Options for 25 and 26.
So another forward, they're reportedly adding Shinyashiki as
too.
Well, and they have Rios, and they have Swiderski. Shinyashiki can play on the wing. I don't think it's his best, but he can play on the wing.
I was thinking, man, like how do you? Because Swiderski's looked more comfortable with somebody playing next to him, like playing off of somebody.
Right, but that's not how Miguel Angel Ramirez typically plays.
Yeah.
He's been a 4-3-3 guy.
So I'm curious how he sets us up. Like, do you ask Rios to run? Do you ask Rios to kind of lead the charge and put Shinyashiki out one side and Karol Swiderski out on the other side?
But you've added Jozwiak, so you're not putting Swiderski on a side. Forget that. No, that's not happening. He's a 9. He's not going wide. Rios would go wide before anybody else between him and Swiderski because he's just more versatile to play out there. It's not his position. Shinyashiki is more of a guy who will play wide, but that's not his position. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. It's
attacking depth.
It is what it is. You're adding pieces, and they needed more depth, and we'll see if it's the right kind of depth for them. But I didn't expect them to sign another forward. No.
Turner then asks, so I know for baseball, the line of demarcation of where you are is past the small sample size of games is Memorial Day. Where is that for MLS?
There isn't one. It shifts every year. I don't think there is a clear one because Seattle's turned that on its head in previous years where they had the crazy run late in the season where it looked like they were done. They fired their first manager ever, Siggy Schmid, and then they turned around and got to the final and won the thing.
Zombie Sounders, baby.
I mean, so I don't think there really is one. I don't think it's the same thing, because I think wins are so impactful with the way that the points totals go, that if you get on a little bit of a run late, you can flip everything on its head. So I don't think there purely is one, Turner. I don't think it works the same way.
All right, last one on the board comes from Katie Weaver. Will Philly/Red Bulls get tired and or beat up by the end of the season and peter out?
That's what happens with these kind of teams. Sometimes it doesn't always happen, but it is something that they have to be concerned about. I haven't paid quite as much attention to Red Bulls yet. I just haven't had as much time to watch them in detail. I think Philly has more depth in that their kids understand the style, and Curtin does a really good job of putting them into situations where if he's got to rotate more, he's able to. I think he's got a lot of not interchangeable parts, and it doesn't matter who starts, but he's got a lot of guys who can come in and give people a spell to sit. So that's going to help him. He's going to have to manage that, but that's going to help him. I don't know if Red Bulls quite have as much of that, because I don't think they've developed quite as much internally that understand the style of play that are interchangeable. So it could be more of an issue for them, but they do have to worry about that, because we've seen it in this league, especially with the summer and what it can be and how hot it can be and how much it can take out of you. It can be difficult to maintain this. Let's see if they do. And let's see if, Orlando finds a little more stability. I mean, Orlando's third and they're 5-3-2. Like, that's not like a mind blowing record. They have a +1 goal differential. Montreal's fourth and they have a -2 goal differential. So, it's wide open. And even with the top two, it's wide open, I think. So there's a lot of different factors going forward that could affect how teams do. Do teams get healthy? Do teams continue to add pieces? Is there a game-changing summer edition for anybody? The coaching bounce for DC. Cincinnati with a new coach. Does that continue to solidify and get better? There's a lot of questions about a lot of teams in the East, and they're positive questions and they're negative questions. So this is going to be a stressful season because of the quality of the conference top to bottom. It's going to be stressful. Don't drive yourself crazy with it, please.
Yes, that is not a requested form for you. No, not at all.
No, I'm not asking anybody to go crazy.
No. We're officially caught up, sir.
Okay, good. Because I got an interview here in 30 minutes, and I've got prep for high school state championships that start tomorrow. It is a really busy week. 2 games tomorrow for me. You can watch on NFHS, single A public GHSA finals. Girls, it's Commerce and Social Circle. They split in the regular season. It's the only loss that the teams had was to one another. Both finished 22-1. Both scored 177 goals in the season.
Wow.
What the damn hell?
But one conceded 13 and one conceded 15.
Wow.
So single A public girls.
That makes it clear. Thanks.
Yeah. They split in the season. They each won the home game. Commerce won at home 5-4. Social Circle won at home 3-1. So that's going to be a barn burner.
That's great.
That starts things tomorrow at Macon at Mercer University. The boys' game is Drew Charter and Dalton Academy. Drew Charter went 12-1 on the season, only gave up 9 goals all year. Dalton Academy 17-2 on the season. Then Wednesday, got the twos at Kennesaw. Some action at the Fraction. There you go.
Yeah.
Make you happy there. Then Thursday, I'm
Beautiful.
back down to 5-star in Macon for 4A. Girls, Jefferson and Marist. Jefferson scored 108 goals on the year. Marist scored 109. And boys, I'm looking forward to this game. Southeast Whitfield versus Northwest Whitfield.
Oh, wow.
Southeast 18-2-3 on the year. Northwest went 15-5-1. Southeast won the regular season match in overtime 3-2 on April 1st. That is going to be a great match.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll get SDH live from Macon in the morning on Friday, and then it is the 6A finals. Cambridge and Lassiter. Lassiter unbeaten on the year, 15-0-4. Jerry, you don't like Lassiter, do you?
I don't much care for most of the Cobb County high schools. You
what
can
I
pretty
thought.
much just lump them all in there together.
That's what I thought. Lassiter, great defensive team, only 9 goals in 19 games conceded. Cambridge, 123 goals in 20 games, 17-2-1 on the year. And then the boys' side, the 6A final, Dalton, 18-2 on the year. They are also playing Lassiter, so it is a Lassiter doubleheader in
Ricky,
Macon.
you take that Trojans and you walk with it.
Yeah, it's a Lassiter doubleheader in Macon. The boys for Lassiter, only 1 loss on the year, 17-1-3. Dalton went 18-2. So 2 games Tuesday, 2s on Wednesday, 2 games Thursday, 2 games Friday, then back to the Benz on Saturday. Then getting ready for a trip to Nashville for Open Cup next Wednesday. So yeah, it's hectic right now. It's very hectic.
And then after the trip to Nashville, 2 days later, we're in Greenville for our next tour stop.
We're in Greenville for a tour stop. Then we're doing a live show from the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Training Ground with the Stars, Stripes, and Soccer event with a ton of special guests for that on Saturday, the 14th in the afternoon. Then I'm calling Georgia Storm that night from University of West Georgia in Carrollton. Then back for Atlanta United and New England.
Yes, that is
on the Sunday. So the next 2 weeks are insane. So, yeah, if I am not as vocal on the Discord or in general, yeah, I'm kind of busy these next 2 weeks.
We
But we will
started a
have,
civil war in the Twitch
yeah,
space.
it was really much appreciated to see that. It's just kind of, okay, yeah, you don't have to do the show. We don't really want to hear from you anymore. And I had people kind of say that on Twitter this weekend. So, yeah, it was wonderful. It's great. I know it was at least tongue in cheek, I hope, on the Discord. But yeah, just remember these things when you're frustrated about a team's result and you want to yell at the people who are calling the game, not playing the game, and even yelling at people who are playing it aren't very good. But man, I got nothing to do with the result, and I'm as frustrated as anybody. But because I'm not stomping my feet and throwing things and yelling doesn't mean I don't understand what's going on. And it kind of happens sometimes where it feels like where team doesn't win, it's, oh, he's a dummy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And when the team wins, everybody else knows what they're talking about. So it's frustrating. But I'm also stressed because of the schedule I have coming up the next couple of weeks. So maybe I'm being overly sensitive. But yeah, it is what it is. Hopefully the team gets a win for everybody's sanity going forward and everybody's mood going forward and everybody's bird app going forward. Because that would be nice. Until they do, hey, and after they do, we're still going to be talking about it, and we're still going to be breaking it down, and we're still going to try to give you facts and not just give you raw emotion of yelling and firing off hot tweets. We're still going to try to talk about it from a factual perspective and a realistic perspective. And if you don't want to hear that all the time, that's fine. That's completely fine. But I'm not going to change the way that I talk about the sport because of a team's results. That's not fair to you guys either. So if that's not what you want to hear today, or that's not what you want to hear after a game, that's okay. You can skip a day and we're not going anywhere. We're still going to be here and talking about it the next day because we've done, I don't know how many shows by this point since 2017, and we've missed very,
I'm
very
honestly
few.
afraid to look.
Yeah.
I have not kept track. But we're probably well over 1,000 shows.
Yeah.
No, we're well over 1,000 like regular shows, not the bonus stuff. I know
Yeah.
we're well over that, and we're not going to stop because the team is having a bad time getting results or scoring goals. So if that upsets you, sorry. If our mentality is not what you want to hear for a day, that's cool. We'll be here the next time whenever you feel like you want to hear it. That's cool. But that's what we do. So we'll do it again tomorrow, but we'll have soccer over there first tonight. Maybe that'll be more fun and it'll be more enjoyable. And you'll hear about Chicken NFC and whoever else we want to talk about this week because there's no telling. It just happens organically.
And somebody gets to cut a promo.
Yeah, somebody gets to cut a promo and all of that stuff. We'll have picks of the week. We'll talk about it. It's not end well for anybody in picks of the week, but we have a winner. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about all the different things tonight, and we'll talk about soccer down here tomorrow, and we'll continue talking about it all week in between my crazy schedule. So y'all have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. Much plot, y'all.
Much plot, y'all.
Mucho platio.